Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
Welcome all to SimSpeed TV this very grey and wet Sunday afternoon in many places in Australia, but it's lovely and sunny at Virtual Road Atlanta for round 9 of the Majors Series, the international region going for the Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. We've got GTP, LMP2 and GT3 ready to go at one of America's classic road courses. This is going to be a magnificent round, and it's a pleasure for us to bring it to you here on SimSpeed TV live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch and Kick. It's me, Reese Gardner. Lynn Kinchelow is alongside me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy is behind the scenes in the producer's chair. Lynn, goodness me, Road Atlanta. This is a round that is always a highlight whenever it's on the calendar. We're getting ready for 2 hours of hard sports car racing around one of the most challenging, most picturesque racetracks in the US.
It may be picturesque, but the last time we saw these cars was around Circuit de la Sarthe, a nearly 13-kilometer circuit over in the countryside of France. But now we go back into the Georgia hills, and we go to a track that's a third the length of Le Mans, and with a lot of undulations up and down these hills. We go from very, very long sight lines to near blind corners in a lot of places, and this is going to be very claustrophobic for our nearly 37-car field currently signed in.
Yeah, very short circuit, as you say, and average speed is quite high, so that means lap times in the GTP class are, at the moment in practice, under 1 minute and 10 seconds. It's a rapid circuit, this one. Been around since the late 1960s. There's only been one real alteration to the layout, and that is the addition of the 10A and 10B chicane in the, I believe, the early 1990s, and also the smoothing out of a hump around the Turn 8 area that sent a Porsche 911 GT1 airborne in 1998, I believe. It's a pretty interesting circuit, to be sure, and curb usage is going to be incredibly important around here too. Some of the cars will deal with those curbs better than others.
Yep. You want to pay especially close attention to in the S's leading up into what is turn number 5. A lot of the GT3 cars in our category will have to try to take those curbs on the right side of the course to be able to optimize their angle going into the left-hander. But all the way around, you're going to see a lot of these cars riding these blue and yellow curbs all the way around, trying to maximize the width of the track, trying to optimize the lap times, and as you say, sub-minute 10s for the GTP category. These cars are going to be encountering each other very often and very frequently.
Yes, so for your benefit on our overlays today, we have the GTP/LMDH cars showing up in red, LMP2 blue, and GT3 in green. It's a pretty straight up race, not much of a curveball to be thrown at the drivers here. They're going to be racing for 120 minutes. There's going to be no safety cars or anything of the like. They're just going to be racing for 2 hours around here. So fuel strategy and staying out of trouble are going to be the main things they need to look out for today.
Yep. For our prototype categories, they'll be looking at about at least 2 pit stops for sure. Some of the GT3s, they might be able to roll the dice a little bit and do a one-stopper, but I would expect 2s all the way around just to be on the safe side and also to be able to get fresh rubber on these cars. They will take a little bit to get up to temperature, but you don't want to leave it late trying to pull something funny.
Especially not in the GTP class, because when they're on cold tyres, they're absolute death traps. Here's the championship standings coming into this round. Ewan Baker and Robert Northway are 1 and 2 for KSR Speed Nation, and Baker has a solid margin up the front of this field. He also topped the GTP class in practice, so he's setting himself up well to extend his championship lead. James Walker and Justin Morton shadowing Robert Northway there. It's going to be a tight battle for second, and we also see that Thomas Hinz and Ryan Steele are only separated by a single point for 8th place coming into this round of the championship. There's going to be a lot of concentration thrown in throughout this field. Hinz in particular, 3rd in practice in the LMP2 class, so he's got a lot of potential to bring that round. The legend standings for drivers over 50 years of age, led by Robert Deloach, who is also in the championship top 10. He is some 22 points ahead of Jake Fox, and Ray Partridge and Dan Stevens trailing a little bit, but with more potential to gain in the final couple of rounds of the championship. Nice to see Dan Stevens on a very even 1,000 points there.
Very nice, very even, and something to keep in mind, with a lot of these guys very close to the points, they've also elected to make some strategy calls in picking their particular categories. Go back to Ewan Baker and Robert Northway. They have selected the GTP category for their cars in this particular field. Meanwhile, James Walker and Justin Morton have selected GT3s. Why is that important? Completely separate points tables. There's a few less points overall for winning your category, but being able to win your category is a great way to even up the score if something happens to one of your competitors in the other classes.
Yeah, exactly. The points format's really playing a big part there. Obviously, they look at what everyone else is going for and decide to position themselves in other classes based on that so that they have the best chance of maximizing their points total from this race. James Walker doing quite well at the moment in the GT3 class, 3rd place for Fusion Gold International, and driving that Mustang, which for a period was the newest car in the GT3 class. We will be getting a new addition in the upcoming season build. The Aston Martin Vantage is finally coming, and that's great news for many. Taylor Lodge working their way around the S's, which are quite a brutal section of track as we come down the hill there. All right, we'll leave that point for later. Sam Harper is also in the GT3 class and working his way nicely to P7. I like the livery that Fusion have gone for in their GT3s for this round.
Yeah, very simple, very sleek, and obviously you're not going to be able to miss that car either way because you, with the highlights. I will say, no, you say everybody's accepting the Aston Martin coming in. I know a group of drivers that won't be very happy about that. That's the ones that drive the Audis. Unfortunately, I don't see any Audis in this field, but there's a couple I know that are rather sad because they didn't raise the car limit, and that means somebody's got to go, and they picked the Audi, and, well, it rings unusually.
Yeah, I mean, I think fair enough. If you enjoy driving a certain car, it's always sad to see it go. But to be fair, the Audi R8 is not really being run by anyone in real life GT competition anymore, except in some of the more regional championships. So I guess it makes sense that iRacing is going to be taking that one out of competition for the time being. Sam Sutton for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport, they've decided to go for the BMW M Hybrid V8, which is a car that I have not seen used full stop in loads of high-profile sports car events for some time.
Yeah, it's been a very long time since the GTB category was exclusively a BMW category, since that was the first car to be released for it. I'm as surprised as you are with that car being here, but that seems to be without a balance of power being set by the Majors League. It's whatever the car is set up as is. Apparently there's something to these BMWs. But let's take a look at the starting grid, Reese.
All right, Ewan Baker has taken pole position with the grid being set by the pre-qualifying sessions of the week leading up to the race. Sam Sutton joins him on the front row in the Orbit Drop Bear BMW. Richard Cumlin is the second of our Acuras, and the first Cadillac of the field is Ben Doughty for KSR Speed Nation. Robert Northway, the reigning International Series champion, will start fifth alongside Chris Tito, and then in seventh place will be Wayne Taylor. Jason Lockridge joining him there in eighth, making it 8 GTP cars. In the LMP2 class, Garen Batten has taken pole. Thomas Hinz alongside him. Going to be a very competitive front row there. Dan Stevens is sharing row 2 with Hayden Kirk. Gavin Barber, also of Middle Finger Racing, is going to be starting alongside Freck Schmidt, who is a driver that we have not seen before. Interesting to see how he'll go on debut. Ray Partridge and Wayne Hutchison round out your top 8 in LMP2. 4 more to go. Gavin Cox and Adam Johnson are on the 5th row of LMP2. And then we have Craig Tilson and Brian Scrivener rounding them out. Lynn, how's GT3 looking?
GT3 is looking a lot like a lot of Ford Mustangs. We got James Walker starting on the pole with Fusion Gold International alongside Lachlan Kappel for the Evolution Racing team. But then guess what? There's more Mustangs. Mark Newton and Justin Morton will be starting positions 3 and 4 respectively. And then we have another new name, Alex Tiskas. Unfortunately, that's a very unusual last name for me. I apologize. Okay, there you go. Alongside Robert Deloach in our first of the McLaren GT3s, the 720Bs. Taylor Lodge and Sam Harper bring up row number 4, positions 7 and 8 with a Mercedes and a McLaren. Next is Robbie Bradbury and Nicholas Gunshauser in a Mustang and a Porsche. There's one Porsche in the field. So next up, Ryan Steele and Marcel Riddler. New name here, both in McLarens. Very capable car, if I do say so myself. Peter Strombazi and Jake Fox make up positions 13 and 14. Starting in the midfield for the category, Roger Schenk and Jonathan Ben are in positions 15 and 16, a Mercedes and a Mustang. Then we have a couple of BMWs on this row right here. Stefan Roussel and Michael Hogg, not part of the cult in the very last positions. So it's kind of a weird bit of a sandwich. We got BMWs at the very front of the field and BMWs at the very back of the field. And you'll notice we have gaps being formed for the initial start.
We do indeed. So GTPs will take the green flag, then the LMP2s, then the GT3s. A solid gap being set between all 3 of our classes. So if there's any incidents in between them, then the approaching classes will have a bit of time to get out of trouble, as it were. Road Atlanta can be very tight on the opening laps, and going side by side through the S's is not advisable at any point in the race, let alone on the first lap, which is about to start. Ewan Baker sees the green flag held high, and the green flag flies, and the GTP class is away for the International Petit Le Mans. Sutton still alongside Baker as they make their way into turn 1. Going to try and fight it, but Baker eases into the lead as it's green flag for the LMP2 class behind, and Garen Batten has gotten a brilliant start. Thomas Hinn slots into second, Daniel Stevens slots into third. Then here come the GT3s. Looks like Walker and Capel will find their way to those top 2 places, seeing that Ryan Steele and Marcel Ritter have not taken to the start, which is an interesting thing to see, but we're already starting to see some position changes in our GTP class. Richard Cumlin has fallen all the way to the back.
Not sure what happened there specifically, but something to note in the LMP2 category, Gavin Barber fell off and ran off on the left side of the track, was able to get going before the GT3s get there, so we'll have to see if he's able to make his way back up through his field. Meanwhile, we take a look at the Acura of Richard Cumlin. Take a look at that long beard driving down this long straightaway before this hard braking zone into 10A and 10B. Handles it very well. These guys having an opportunity on the rolling start to get the tires up to temperature, and it looks like so far so good, except for the Barber machine. I think it's all smooth sailing from right here.
Yeah, looking pretty smooth. First lap complete in the LMP2 class, and Thomas Hinns searching for an inside gap there on Garen Batten, trying to unsettle him as they come up the hill out of turn 1 through turns 2 and then 3 coming into the S's. The curbs are brutal at this point, and you're hard on the power flat out through the S's in these prototype machines. It'll be interesting to see where Hinsey is faster. It's going to be more of a setup difference than a car difference in LMP2. They are all driving the Dallara P217, a single chassis in this class, so it's all down to the driver and how they can get the best out of the settings available to them. Hinsey getting pressured now by the KS, sorry, that's Daniel Stevens in the number 3, who's had a really good first part of this lap.
Yep, they may all be spec categories, but in all races at the majors this season, it is open setup. So a lot of these guys will have customized setups to dial these cars in. Oh, look out! Is this live or is this a replay? I think this is the yeah. Very, very close quarters action right there, and you see multiple drivers having to take evasive action. I think race control is taking a look at that right this moment.
Yeah, we do have live race control for this one, and for Barber, just unfortunate, he got hit in the rear by Frick Schmidt in the number 400, who has just been black flagged by race control for that incident. So, yeah, not an ideal debut here for Frick. This is his on-board view of it, trying to maximize his pace on lap 1. I think Barber braked a bit earlier than Schmidt was expecting. So, unfortunate, but it's the brakes sometimes, and they will continue on as is for the moment. Battle for the lead in GT3. James Walker continuing to lead, but Lachlan Capel is the only one who's stayed with him. Mark Newton has fallen back ever so slightly. And then there's an even larger gap to Justin Morton, who's sitting on his own there in the number 9. Looking at the track temperature here, it's looking quite reasonable. 33 degrees Celsius, as it looks like there was a problem there for the Northway falling back. It looks like Ben Doughty made his way past at 10A and 10B. Is this a mistake for Northway? It is indeed. He got on the brakes way too late for the chicane, and Doughty just sailed on through.
That's a case of it's a good thing that chicane was there, because that's a lot of runoff that you can use to obviously make that maneuver work. iRacing will issue a slowdown to make sure that you don't take advantage of it repeatedly, give up a little bit of time, but he keeps the car clean, he gets to keep going, and only loses the position.
On board with Dan Stevens as he chases our top 2 in LMP2. Stevens with one of the most elaborate rigs in most fields that we broadcast here on SimSpeed. He'll be just inside slipstream range, I think. He'll be able to pick up a whisper of the draft, but maybe not quite enough to gain anything. Road Atlanta is a track of two halves, really. You have the S's at the start of the lap, which require higher downforce, and then the really long back stretch where it's ideal to have a car with not as much downforce as that. A problem there for Lachlan Capel. He has fallen to 8th place, potentially to 9th if he can't get back in line. He was running solidly in 2nd in GT3. Something has gone very wrong for the ERT Mustang.
And when we take a look at this replay right here, we're going to see it's going to be a boo-boo of self-infliction. Caught the curb on that first little bit, and that gets the car upset. And that second curb just finished him off, gets him sideways, and, well, at least he didn't get damaged, and he didn't take anybody with him, so he's just going to take the embarrassment and carry on.
Yeah, it was a very odd snap, but it's very easy to do something like that in the S's. You've got minimal change of direction, brutal curves, you're right on the edge of grip most of the time, so you need to be very careful. And Capel evidently pushed things a little bit too far there, maybe caught out by a slightly more swaying rear end. Batten under more pressure from Hins for the lead of the LMP2 class meanwhile, and again Hinsey looks up the inside of the corner. He's trying his best to unsettle Garin, but he's proving a tough customer so far. I'm seeing another GT3 spin that's just eventuated. Alex Zekas in the number 24, the number 200, who is now running in 13th. Looks like a similar thing to what happened to Lachlan Capel at first glance, but evidently it happened a little earlier. He caught the grass and then the car got unsettled coming out of turn 3.
Yeah. If we get a chance to get a replay as we take a look at the Taylor Hodge machine, is this damage on the Samsung machine right here?
No, that's just the profile of the BMW's front end, I think.
It's been so long that we had seen this car. I'm a little confused as to how this thing is supposed to look. But in the meantime, he's in heavy, heavy traffic. This is like running down the interstate or the freeway. However your local laws may be of what they call the highways. This is very, very, very hectic for the GTBs. Lapping around in the minute 10 bracket, trying to dance around cars that are doing 10 seconds slower. It's crazy as it is. But here's Gavin Barber and Freak Schmidt battling for the 10th position right here. The 400 has served their penalty for the lap 1 incident, so now they're having to start the recovery drive from here on out.
Yes, and looks like it's going to be take 2 between Frick Schmidt and Gav Barber. Remembering, of course, that these two were the ones that made contact on lap 1. Karen Batten and Thomas Hins continuing to fight hard for the lead here. Batten defending nicely. It looks like Hinsey's just gearing up for a maneuver here. We're not sure of Hinsey's ultimate pace in race trim. I get the feeling we may be able to find out if he succeeds in getting past. What he needs to focus on is the slipstream down at the back stretch and trying to line up a move into 10A and 10B. Harder than it looks, though, when all your competitors are driving the same car.
And the other thing to keep in mind, if you're getting a draft, that's an opportunity to save a little bit of fuel. Pit strategy may not necessarily be able to completely eliminate a stop, but if he saves enough fuel, or does he go for it right here? Nope, never mind. He could be saving fuel, could be able to take a little less fuel on the final stop. Every 10th of a second that you can save in the pits is worth a lot out on the racetrack.
Looks like Batten's going to get held up here by one of our BMWs towards the back of the GT3 field. That messes up his momentum down the start-finish straight, but it's not long enough for Thomas Hins to truly take advantage. Needs to stay behind for another lap or so for his next opportunity, or will it come here? Oh, that's Jason Lockridge in one of our GTPs that's gone off there as they make their way past the BMW, I believe, of Stefan Roussel. Here's what happened to Jason Lockridge. Oh, a little too hard into turn 3, and he ends up getting caught by another of his compatriots for good measure.
And you noticed some bodywork briefly fell off of that launcher's machine before it snapped back on. Sometimes the server gets a little eager with the predictions as we take a look at a separate incident. Ooh. Tried to stuff it into a corner that didn't quite work. Wayne Taylor just not quite getting it. But He kept it intact, and we'll see how this car carries on.
Yes, of course, the GTPs run with a hybrid system that does the majority of energy recovery, in fact all the energy recovery on the rear axle, which means sometimes the brakes can catch you out. Here's Frick Schmidt and Gavin Barber once again, both of them making their way through turn 7, and that's Schmidt getting the position over Gavin Barber. Evidently, Barber's having some trouble getting to grips with the LMP2 in these conditions. Hopefully, he can find some way to make it work. But yeah, turn 7 generally not one of the places where you want to pass a GT if you're in a prototype. Just not much of a run between the two turns.
It is a little bit of an awkward corner, truth be told. It's deceptively quick going in because you can carry so much momentum through turn 6, but that can just absolutely mess up your momentum as we get a spinner off of turn 7. The 08 has just gone off. Might be able to see him on the right here as we ride on board with the Gavin Cox machine. Yep, you barely see it. Jake Fox nosed into the wall ever so slightly. That's got to give him a little bit of damage, but he should be able to proceed onward. It was a very low speed impact. Let's take a look at it on the replay. Ooh, just accelerated too hard, too soon, and yeah, that can happen even with the traction control systems on board these GT3s.
Yeah, if you're running traction control on a sort of low setting, it'll wait longer before it actually kicks in. And sometimes if you get a little bit of a slide and then the TC kicks in and tries to arrest that slide, it's not going to result in you recovering from the incident. We've had our first mechanical black flag of the race, and that is for Chris Yatito. Oh no, turning across one of the Acuras there as they tried to make their way into turn 1 past one of the GT3s, and that is hard into the barrier for Chris Yatito, and that is likely going to be a big blow to his efforts. You do get one spare car in the Majors Series to use, a fast repair, so you don't have to wait 15 minutes to get your repairs done. But yeah, unfortunate there for Yatito. Driver that we're on board with here, the one that Yatito made contact with, making their way past Lachlan Capel, and yeah, it looks like Yatito was trying to angle for the apex and maybe wasn't aware that the Acura was still there.
Would you believe it or not, he's hit another car. The 533 has just made contact with the 9 of Justin Morton, I believe is the car that was involved, and this is starting to rack up a bit of a frag streak going on for the 533.
Yeah, Richard T. Kumlin trying to go up the inside at the final corner, it seems, and it was big netco contact on Justin Morton. Hinz, despite suffering some technical issues, you'll notice, has gotten through on Garen Batten. This is the contact between Kumlin and Morton, and see how much space there was between the cars at the point of contact? That is some of the worst netcode I have ever seen, and unfortunately, it has taken Justin Morton right out of the running.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. This is the international region of the majors. The servers selected are in Sydney, but we do have drivers from all parts of the world competing at this particular point. Justin Morton from the United States and Richard T. Kumlin from Sweden waving that flag. So it is entirely possible that is a 500 millisecond ping spike that has resulted in the 9 machine absolutely spearing the wall in the final corner. We'll have to see how race control decides it, but there's a couple of reviews underway for the same vehicle.
Yes, so we shall see then. This is the change for position between Garen Batten and Thomas Hinz at the front of the LMP2 field. Batten was making his way through traffic and got a little held up here down the start-finish straight. The number 51 gets into turn 1, but evidently looks like this is rewound a bit too far, so we may not be able to see the specific moment of the pass, so we apologize for that. But for the moment, Thomas Hinz is in the lead of LMP2, and we'll see if Garen Batten be able to pass him back, much like Hinsey did to him here. So Batten, he thought about going for the move on the GT3 there, but wasn't able to get alongside, and then he got held up on the exit. Hins just went straight for it.
And that's the beauty and the drawbacks of multi-class racing. Everybody's in their own race, essentially, but you're all sharing the track at the same time, so you can kind of use the other classes as a pick, and that's what Hins was able to do to make that pass work. As we take a look at the 34 machine, Ewan Baker has a fairly respectable lead of about 2 seconds. It's fluctuating thereabouts from him to Sam Sutton, but we see the lap times as they come in. Ewan Baker losing about a second over his previous laps right there, and that's going to allow, well, actually Sutton had a bit of a hang up as well, so obviously what the multi-class giveth, the multi-class taketh.
Yeah, that it does. And Road Atlanta is one of the hardest tracks for multi-class. Ben Doherty and Robert Northway, the two KSR machines running at the front of this field. Northway in the Acura and Doherty in the Cadillac. They are picking their way through that GT3 traffic, and they are coming up on Chris Yatito, who has taken his spare car and is now back out on track there in BMW, but he is unfortunately a few laps down on the rest of the field as a result of that. They make their way past without issue. Now, Northway has a lot of form to back himself up. He is the reigning champion of the international region, which took a break last year, but Northway will certainly be looking for a move here on Ben. I'm not sure how the behavior of the GTPs relative to each other is at the moment, but the Acura traditionally has been the car with the most aerodynamic grip and the easiest handling out of the GTP cars. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but Northway is making it work nicely.
Yep, usually it's traditionally been Acura is at the king. One thing I am surprised to see is the lack of the Ferrari 499 in this category. Normally that gets a little bit of a four-wheel drive, but perhaps with the BMWs getting something, some action here in this field, I'm kind of wondering what the I'm kind of interested to see what Sutton's able to do with Baker later on in the race. See how that works out.
Yes, haven't seen the BMW M Hybrid been in the front running position for a GTP race in a very long time. It's become one of the more difficult cars to drive in the class, even since the tyre refresh. Well, here comes Wayne Hutchison and Frick Schmidt. Schmidt has caught up quite a bit to Hutchison and also Craig Tilson as well. It seems the traffic has smiled on the number 400 since he got past Gavin Barber a few laps ago. So a three-way battle ensuing for 9th place in our second class on track. On board here with Gavin, who's a bit behind these guys, finds his way past the McLaren into turn 1. But watch how much he's moving around here. Gav is one of the drivers that uses a motion rig, and it's always entertaining seeing how he deals with all the bumps of Road Atlanta.
That's obviously a very action-packed sim room right there. Meanwhile, all the action's in front of him. Out in front, it looks like Schmidt was able to get around Hutchison for that position, and now he's dogging the Tilson machine directly in front. He's trying to collect 2 for 1 on this lap.
Yeah, he's gotten some pace up since his tour through the pits thanks to the black flag. Tilson gets the better exit out of turn 7, and so looks like Schmidt's going to have to wait a bit for some more moves as they make their way past the Mercedes of Taylor Lodge there. This is quite the battle that we're seeing eventuate. Meanwhile, it's all on in GT3. Robert DeLoach here in the middle of a 5-way fight with 4 GT3s and 1 GTP. Chris Yatito is actually battling with these cars for position, and he's got to make his way past this trio of Zombati, DeLoach, and Bradbury. Gets past most of them, but he's going to make life difficult in turn 1 for the lead of the pack. Zombati gets sent wide, and that will allow Deloach, Seekis, and Bradbury to potentially get that done there. No, actually, I think it might have been Bradbury that got that contact. Not entirely sure. It was one of the McLarens there. I think it was Seekis.
I want to say this car that got received the contact is the Steel machine that started at the pits and was actually hanging out for a little bit, probably having some ice cream. But Reese, you mentioned that Yutito was on the same lap. And why is that important for these cars? As we take a look at the contact here, Steel has obviously had a bit of a misadventure because he's missing the rear bumper, and that's very unusual even for a car that's multiple laps down. The reason it's important that Yutito's on the same lap as these GT3s, those GT3s are not getting blue flags. They have no idea that this Yutito machine is just trolling around in the field, kind of like Jaws.
Yeah, indeed. Not much forewarning, so the drivers need to be taking a look at their F3 black box there. Frick Schmidt, meanwhile, battling with Craig Tilson. It ends up getting defined by one of our Acuras there. I think that might have been Northway that just moved his way past them. And now this gives a position potentially back to Wayne Hutchison. And Gavin Barber has managed to catch back up to these guys as well. It's now a four-way fight for 8th in LMP2.
Obviously, this 400 machine is a LMP2 specialist. He's got immense pace in this vehicle. And he's also throwing a lot of crazy little moves in the S's that I wouldn't expect a Majors regular to necessarily want to throw. Obviously, he's going to give these guys a little bit of pause as they work their way around this 400 machine.
So Tilson's rear view of all of that. They are blessed with some clear track for the moment. And yeah, it looked like Schmidt may have been sent wide by the GTP coming through, and that allowed Craig Tilson back past. Still very early days in this race, and it's going to be coming up on pit stop time for these LMP2s soon. They can go around 40-45 minutes to a tank at most, so we're not far away from seeing them make tours through the pits, and I think relative track position is going to be very important for them. They're going to be dealing with traffic the whole way through. Yeah.
Just we're about 27 minutes into this race thereabouts, and these cars are approaching 19 laps on the stint, so I would expect them to be in the next 10 to 15 laps, depending on how they want to play their pit cycles.
How much will those relative positions change as they find their way through? That is the question. Coming up on some more GT3 traffic, it's Nicholas Gunzenhauser from Switzerland in the Porsche, and Sam Harper in the Fusion Ferrari, as Chris Yutito now makes his way up the inside, continuing his recovery from his mechanical black flag earlier. Cleanly finds his way past the LMP2s, as there goes Schmidt past Tilson to the front of this pack. Very nicely done indeed, took great advantage of the move through from the GTP. He's immediately gone up the inside of the GT3s, an ever-closing door for Craig Tilson, but gets through on Gunzenhauser cleanly. Perhaps Gunzenhauser not too happy with how that's worked out for him. He was right on the back of Sam Harper, but now he's got about probably 10-15 car lengths.
10 to 15 car lengths, but it is still a long ways to go. Plenty of time to make up that gap. So I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to pick up a few more positions before the stint is out, as we ride on board with Sam Harper, taking a look back at the Wayne Hutchison machine. Beautiful red, white, and blue dog bear car right there with the metallic trim. Delicious. Taking a look around the right side of the track on the long back straightaway, able to get clear. Well, they'll both be able to get clear, and they'll be going down to the braking zone with no issues.
Gently does it down the hill in cars that don't have anti-lock brakes, basically our prototype classes. The GT3 class has anti-lock brakes, which can be good, but you're going to have to take a lot of care in these prototype machines. They have traction control and not much else. Meanwhile, gap for the lead in GT3. James Walker has fallen to the lead very nicely. Now 6 seconds between himself and Mark Newton. Lachlan Cable, it has to be pointed out, has worked his way back up to third, which is a pretty significant recovery for the 758 who we saw spinning in the S's earlier on in the race. And considering the pace that Cable's been able to put, I'm pretty sure he'll have a solid opportunity at getting second by the end.
Yeah, but still, anything can happen. That's an impressive little drive so far from the 758 as we switch our gears back to the P2 category. Thomas Hins leading Garrett Batten by about 3 seconds. That was nearly a battle a little while ago. Now that gap is extended out quite a bit. So obviously, either Hins has been very expert at negotiating the traffic, or Batten has been getting unlucky with the way when he meets other cars.
Yeah, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I think. You have to improvise a lot with multi-class racing, and also try your best to plan ahead while being prepared to change your plans at the last moment. It's, I guess, much like life, really, a multi-class race. Robert Northway here on the replay, trying to get a move up the inside of a GT3 at the chicane, and he goes deep there for the second time that we've seen. He's not having a great time with the brakes on that Acura, it seems.
But on the bright side, he's been able to keep the car straight through that nice mottled grass that iRacing has recently put onto this track. So at the very least, he's able to keep the car going in the general direction. So he hasn't gained any time, but he hasn't really been losing time at the same point. Meanwhile, this is battle for the 4th position between the series regular Sam Harper and the ringer Nicholas Gunzenhauser. It's going to be heating up real quick. This is going to be let me take a look. It's going to be Ferrari on Porsche. It's going to be an interesting little matchup of 1 versus 1. These are the only two specimens in their respective car class, or of these respective car brands. So a little bit of a German versus Italy fight going on right here between the Welsh driver and the Swiss driver.
Yes, and Ferrari versus Porsche, of course, is one of the most legendary matchups in sports car racing. Gunzenhauser looking good at the moment, coming into the S's. Ewan Baker setting the fastest lap of the race so far in clear air, 109.5. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to beat that with how the ebb and flow of the traffic goes. But yeah, matchup between the Ferrari and the Porsche. In recent times, the Porsche 911 has not been the best of the GT3s in a straight line. It tends to make up more of its time in these sort of medium speed corners. Rotates very nicely, but doesn't quite have the power to keep up with the likes of the Mustang and such. Well, fortunately for Gunzenhauser, he is going to have the slipstream of Sam Harper's Ferrari as the KSR Acura of Baker makes his way by. And he's going to pull out a move here, up the inside at 10A, and doesn't look like Harper was going to fight that one too much. Now it's his turn to follow Gunzenhauser for a bit.
Something else to keep in mind about the majors, our full season drivers are able to score points. Meanwhile, ringers that aren't necessarily declared for the full championship do not score any points whatsoever. So they don't even count in the point standing. So that was a net position nothing for Sam Harper. As we take a look at the 70, Brian Scrivener having a little bit of an off-course excursion in the LMP2s.
Yeah, one of his teammates moving past him there. Not ideal for Brian Scrivener, who now sits at the back of the LMP2 field. Here's the battle for second in GT3. Lachlan Capel has managed to drive like an animal to bring that gap to Mark Newton back down to just over a second. This is a fantastic recovery that we've seen from the Evolution Racing Team 758. We'll see if Mark Newton is going to be able to defend any. He's going to have plenty of traffic coming through at all times, and that might help him, it might hinder him. He genuinely doesn't know until they're on him. This section of the track, through the fast final corner and the fast first corner, some of the worst places to get prototypes on your rear. Yeah,
it's a very, very slippery corner, especially with the Mustangs. they're a little bit of a heavier machine than the rest of the field, so I've experienced it in practice for the America side. They like to get a little slidey out there, but obviously Lockley Capel is capable, no pun intended, of generating great pace. His 5-lap average at the moment is a 1:18.595, compared with Newton, who just picked it up to an 18.980. It's not going to be a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when Capel catches the Newton car.
Yeah, well, look at that. Capel did lose a bit of time on the previous lap due to traffic, but he's solidly half a second faster than Newton when there's no other cars on track around them. So keep an eye for that gap to continue to come down. Now 1.075, 1.059, very small changes on the back straight, but under braking on exit, this is where Capel is going to gain. Looks like he's going for a bit more of a slow in, fast out approach. But potentially, now that Newton has seen Capel find his way up to the back of him, they've got some clear track. Maybe he's trying to get some pace back. Richard Kumlin, meanwhile, has come into the pits. Looks like the first driver from our GTP class to take a pit stop. And I'm unsure if that is necessarily for damage or for some other reason, trying to reverse engineer the strategy maybe, depending on how much the GTPs have to stop. Dramas for Ewan Baker, meanwhile, he is right in the middle of a pack of LMP2s there. And he'll find his way past them without much issue. Still leading by 3.5 seconds from Sam Sutton. That is enough of a lead that you'll be able to defend it somewhat, depending on the ebb and flow of traffic.
Yeah, Kumlin might be trying to play it backwards. Run the first stint shorter and then try to stretch it out the rest of the way, full fuel runs. That would be optimal if you want to make sure that you have the freshest, most warm tires at the end of the race. But at the same time, it could all even out as they work their way through the stint. That does drop in behind Jason Lottridge for position in the category. Lottridge struggling out there at the particular point. He's got 5-lap average of 1:15 flats. That's a little slower than some of the LMP2s that he's been running around.
Yeah, not ideal. Sam Sutton having his own dramas there. LMP2s trying to find their way past GT3s ahead of him. He has to take all the way to the driver's left side of the track. It's a treacherous spot, the S's and the run-up for turns 6 and 7, even when you don't have multi-class racing to think about. Still on for third between the KSR teammates, Doughty versus Northway. And it seems they're giving themselves a nice amount of space between each other to work themselves out. Richard Kumlin, meanwhile, has evidently gotten a black flag, but not from race control. It would appear that that Kumlin either didn't clear a slowdown or sped on pit exit. I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
Yep, that if you have a slowdown, which is entirely possible if you cut 10A and 10B before you get to the pit lane, iRacing will issue you a penalty because you are supposed to serve that before you come in, and those are not permitted to be cleared by race control at this particular point. So he's going to have to come back and do that the hard way, and his strategy has come all undone. Meanwhile, Capel right on the rear bumper of Newton. It's Mustang on Mustang violence.
Lovely stuff right here. Now we're going to be seeing the battle eventuate between these two. It was at a second last time we looked at them, but it seems that Capel took advantage of the last lap or so where they had completely clear air. There was no one on track around them, and Capel has maximized his pace. Now let's see if he can pick up the slipstream on Newton and find his way back into second and maybe try and take a few bites out of the now 5.7 second lead that James Walker has at the front of our GT3 field. A little bit of slipstream being taken by Newton from Thomas Hinds, trying to keep Capel behind, but the ERT Mustang dives up the inside at 10A and clears him substantially before they even get to the turn-in point.
that is textbook overtake and getting back into line for the corner. All of the benefits, none of the downsides. Obviously, Newton had to cooperate to make that work, and obviously, long way to go. Still an hour, 25 minutes left to go in this race. Newton doesn't want to fight this just yet.
Yeah, Newton's taking the long game approach, as all drivers should be in a race like this. Some more space between Doughty and Northway. Their gap has remained at 0.2 of a second, but these guys being teammates at KSR Speed Nation, I'd wager that they will just be looking to fly in formation for a bit and try and consolidate the podium that they already have. Gavin Cox now has Friedrich Schmidt for company. And have a look at the exit that Schmidt got out of the 10B corner. Sweeps up the inside at the final turn to make himself up another position, and this is really beneficial for Schmidt. He's back up to 7th place, and it looks to me like that's round about where he started. So it's been a good recovery from that black flag.
Yep, he's got. I think he's got all of the positions he's going to get for the time being. His 5-lap average at the moment is in the 15 flats. All of the cars in front of him are running various 15-second at 5-lap averages, so he will be able to make up a little bit of ground, but at this point, all of the easy positions have been taken care of for the time being.
Indeed they have. Well, now we move to another GT3 battle. Robert Deloach versus Robbie Bradbury. Both Fusion drivers, but for different sub-teams. And there's a bit of a defense going on there for the moment. Looks like Deloach will stay ahead of Bradbury. Deloach was one of the drivers that suffered a bit early on, lost a few places, but has driven consistently to try and gain them back. And one thing's for sure, whenever you look at a McLaren, you're going to be looking at some magnificent displays from the exhaust pipes all the way back from the MP412C era. It's good to know that the 720S has kept those spitting flames.
It is a very hot car, both in terms of exhaust and aesthetics. Very sleek design for this McLaren engineered machine. Meanwhile, in the LMP2s, Ray Partridge and Schmidt are having a little bit of a badger fest. Schmidt flashing the headlights, taking the position, and yeah, Mr. Partridge was not very happy at that particular point.
No, he wasn't. He ran a bit wide out of turn 5, and I think he took a bit to choose which line he was going to take into turn 6, but I think Schmidt was wise to all of that, and that's yet another place up now for Friedrich Schmidt. He is now running 6th in LMP2. Behind him, Tilson, Hutchison and Barber, who Schmidt has left far behind now, still fighting. It's a dog bear filling in a middle finger racing sandwich, and it's looking pretty tasty for Craig Tilson. At least he's worked things out nicely so far. Tilson up 4 places, 2 of those being the GTPs of Richard Kumlin and Chris Yatito, so net 2 positions gained in class for Craig. Not bad for only 40 minutes in.
Yep, but they're in separate points tables, so really all it has accomplished is you're physically ahead of those cars. As we take a look at the onboard camera, both in sim and in real life, that motion rig is just zipping around these corners, all sorts of places. As we take a look, going to the right-hander 6 and 7, boy, that's a close call with this car in front right there.
That's deep, very deep for Gavin Barber. Dan Stevens coming into the lane. Looks like the first of our LMP2s to take a scheduled stop, and that is almost bang on 39 minutes into the race. So I'm expecting pretty much every other LMP2 to come in the next couple of laps, unless they are deciding to save fuel. Meanwhile, there's the move, at least attempted there, by Wayne Hutchison on Craig Tilson. Gavin Barber is still with those guys, but it looks like Barber's going to be going for the pits there. And, well, Jason Lockridge is going to join Daniel Stevens and Friedrich Schmidt in the pit lane on that lap. Stevens' pit stop, 41.6 seconds. That's a full tank plus tires, I believe.
Yep, you take tires and fuel at the same time in all of these cars, so there's no point in double sitting any of the tires except at the very end if you want a fuel-only stop. Obviously, some of these guys, like Lottridge, probably trying to play it safe, trying to keep as fresh of tires as they can on these cars. But meanwhile, activity is picking up on the inside pit road. It is feeding time at the zoo. All sorts of cars here. Lottridge, Barber, Smith. Right now, it's all been midfield midfield prototypes and backmarker GTPs, but we also see Batten has come into the pits. Hayden Kirk is joining them as well. So obviously, it's about time for the LMP2s to come in.
Yes, that's most of the LMP2 field that has come in. Oh dear, black flag for Jason Lottridge. Looks like speeding at pit entrance there for Jason Lottridge. Unfortunate for him, as Deloach and Bradbury continue their fight in the 7th and 8th positions of GT3. Our GTP leader, Ewan Baker, has been minding his own business up at the front. He has had eyes forward pretty much the whole time. Sutton did pressure him a little early on, but since they started making their way through traffic, Baker seems to have had a lot better luck with that. And you know, I've been talking, we've been talking about this, me and Scott Rankin, throughout the course of the NZ Toyota 86 E-Cup, which Baker also took part in. Just seeing how Baker has developed as a driver. He's always been aggressive, but you know, some shortcomings do come with that. And Baker has been applying himself in the past 12 months or so to sort of rein in that aggression, or rather channel it in some productive ways. And it looks like it's working out well for him here at the Petit Le Mans. He has not had a single incident thus far, touch wood, and he is clearly the fastest of the GTPs out there at the moment.
As the saying goes, it is easier to rein in a fast driver than it is to try to get a slow driver to go faster. Obviously, it's worked out for Baker so far. As you've mentioned, no incidents thus as of yet, as he works his way down the long backstretch. Meanwhile, more pit stops are on the way in the LMP2 category. We've got Johnson, we've got Gavin Cox in the field, we've got Scribner almost finishing up his service right now, about 30 seconds out of 40 coming up. Still waiting to see what the GTPs will decide to do for their pit stop. Probably another 5 to 10 minutes before that happens.
Yeah, the GTPs can go a little bit further. LMP2 spun there. That's Ray Partridge that's gone around at turn 7. And looks to be an incident that happened all on his own. Got caught over the curb, and I think that unsettled the Dallara. This is one of those places where you can use the curb if you need to, but there's some treacherous bumps there, and potentially just pinching the rears there, maybe on a downshift for Ray Partridge. And so that has ended his run for the moment. Have a look at the gap here between James Walker and Lachlan Cable. Cable is on an absolute tear right now. A few laps ago, or about 10 laps ago, I'd say, it was about 8 seconds. Cable is pretty much doing qualifying laps, it seems.
Those are qualifying laps, just taking a look at it, as Partridge has gone off again on cold tires. But meanwhile, Cable, 5-lap average, 1:18.454 to James Walker's 1:18.919. This gap has been closing down tremendously. Walker has also slipped into the 1:19s. Probably due to traffic, but still, 19s are not very good. There's a spun car at the end of the S's right there. It is Tilson in the 22. Cars going off left and right and center because of these cold tires. If we take a look at the replay, I think you'll find that this car just coming out onto cold tires.
And meanwhile, there's been a change for third in GTP. Ben Doty, he had a great gap over Robert Northway, but he made a mistake at the 10A 10B complex, much like Northway has done a couple of times. The KSR evidently having some trouble with the brakes on those GTPs.
The only difference between those two, Northway's in an Acura. Ben Doty is in the one and only Cadillac in the field for this event. Meanwhile, let's go back and take a look at what happened to the 22. Oh, got up on the curb. little upset on cold tires. You're not used to it, so he gets a little bit sideways and has to do the old Austin Powers trick to get the car back going again.
Yeah, not ideal for Tilson, who himself was involved in quite a battle earlier. Meanwhile, Ewan Baker, our overall race leader, is in the pit lane. Alex Zikas is back in the pit lane as well to serve a black flag. Evidently something going wrong on some point of the pit transit. Sam Sutton is going to continue for an extra lap here. And it looks like potentially we might see Northway, Doughty and Taylor do the same thing. Not sure at this stage, but it makes sense that Baker has been the first to come in. He's been just driving the wheels off that Acura and not saving any fuel. Gav Barber and Wayne Hutchison, meanwhile, they are still part of this battle that Craig Tilson was once a part of, and they're all on fresh tyres now in the LMP2 class and back up to full tanks, all getting used to the new fuel load, getting those tyres heated up. Track temperature has stayed pretty static. If anything, it's gone down a couple of degrees to 88 Fahrenheit. That's 31 Celsius. So those tyres will take a little bit longer to heat up, but maybe it'll be helped by the amount of energy being put into the track right now from all these cars.
But it's an extremely treacherous time, especially if you spent, the past 30, 40 minutes basically hot lapping on warm tires. You're gonna feel the stress of these tires going out there. Some information on the 200. The reason that they were in for a black flag, they are currently sitting on 22 incident points, and as part of the majors rule set, they do enforce incident limits. It is 20x for the initial penalty, which is a drive-through for that, and then you get another 10 to play with, and then you can, well, if you get that one, then you get another 10. So a little bit of information back there. Meanwhile, as we look at Ewan Baker's dropped to 4th of the overall running, still on those fresh tires, still trying to get these things up to temperature. Meanwhile, as Sutton, Northway, and Doty all pass the start-finish line. Actually, never mind. Doty, I think, is the one coming in.
Yeah, okay, so Doughty, who had just taken 3rd, coming on in. And it looks like we'll still have to wait for Sutton, Northway, and Taylor to find their way into the lane. Still not seeing any scheduled pit stops around GT3s yet, because they have the longest lasting fuel tanks in the whole field. Keeping an eye on the gap between James Walker and Lachlan Capel, it has ballooned back out just a little bit. I think Capel might have found some traffic somewhere along the way. So it's a good response from James Walker, continuing to bring the pace up there. You know what? There's potential that Walker might have actually been saving a little bit of fuel. There's with that much of a gap to play with, and how Lachlan Capel was jetting up to the back of him so fast. Yeah, maybe Walker was just taking it easy.
Just from practice, I know these Mustangs have a fairly hefty fuel tank, 29.1 gallons. I don't know where they stick the 10th in, but it's a very big fuel tank, and it takes a while to burn down. So if you have an opportunity to save somebody while we take a look at this, so it's a prototype sandwich, and that's going to be a prototype on GT3 Violence. If race control is called out on, notified of that incident, they are obliged to treat that a little more harshly, as it is class-on-class violence right there.
Yeah, Michael Hogg will be none too happy with that one. One of few BMWs in this field. In comes Sam Sutton, responding to Ewan Baker, who is up to turn 6 and 7 now. So let's see how the gap works out between these two. Ewan Baker's pit stop was 41.5 seconds. Expecting about the same for Sutton here, but he has been able to go a lap longer, so maybe he can use this opportunity to put a little bit less fuel in the car and gain a little bit of time on Baker. Still waiting for those stops to be completed. Robert Northway is going to complete his stop there, 42.7 seconds, and through comes Ben Doughty, who now has his tyres up to temperature, going to have to deal with his teammate ahead of him, struggling to get those tyres up to temp. Sutton is out, and he has come out in the lead. Ewan Baker is going to settle for second there, as Sutton's pit stop was about 8 seconds faster than Ewan Baker's was. So Sutton's definitely put less fuel in there.
Definitely less fuel, definitely less time spent on pit road, but will that cost him later on? Because if you don't put fuel in now, you're going to have to put it in later at some point. But we'll have to see what they decide to do later on as the Wayne Taylor machine finishes up their pit stop. 41 seconds, that is a full-on fuel up as they drop off the lead lap for the first time. Just 3 cars remain on the overall lead lap, but that doesn't really matter for anybody in the other categories. Meanwhile, in the LMP2s, compared to Thomas Hins, there's about 7 cars still in the lead lap. That doesn't count the Yatito machine kind of dancing around in between them. And in the GT3 category, we still have another 8 or so cars on the GT3 to lead lap.
Yeah, there's been plenty of dramas for many, and there's more dramas for Alex Zikas there. Oh dear, that explains a few things. That is hard into the barriers there. And actually, is that Zikas? It is. So he has found the wall at turn 1 in much the same way Chris Yatito did earlier. Did he catch the grass on the outside? Did he go deep? Oh, looked like the car just over-rotated as he came to the curb, and that's a heavy bit of contact with the tyres.
It is very easy to mess up that braking point for turn number 1. If you turn in too soon, you might see that curb and you might panic, and if you overcorrect, that's what happens. You lose the rear wing, and yep, that car is going to be under extended repairs. Well, actually, he did have a spare car, so he has to take... No, he's still running around. I think he does have a spare car, but he hasn't had a chance to use it yet. Meanwhile, look at this little battle right here. Sutton barely losing that lead position to Ewan Baker again.
Yeah, and that is the difference between cold tyres and warm tyres. Ewan Baker has been out there for 3 more laps than Sam Sutton, and it's about that amount of time it takes for the tyres to really switch on in these GTP cars. Even with the recent tyre updates, the GTPs, when you put the new tyres on the car, they are absolutely slithering around the track until you can get them up to temperature. So I would think that an undercut is certainly the best way to go about trying to gain positions through the pit cycle. Garen Batten becomes the next car to grab a black flag, and I believe that is an iRacing black flag. No, actually, no. It is race control, and that was for the contact with Michael Hogg earlier, it seems.
And unfortunately, y'all didn't catch it on the side frequency, but Garen Batten has appealed that ruling. It was going to be a stop and hold for about 60 seconds, and if it is upheld in post-race review, you can take it back and double it. But at the moment, Garen Batten does not have to worry about the penalty for the time being.
Okay. Yeah. It did look like a pretty tight pack of cars when that incident happened, and I can understand Batten appealing that. He probably decided he wasn't... there were some mitigating circumstances for him there. Baker is back in the lead, and now strutting his stuff out there again as our GT3s are going to start coming into the lane. Newton is the first of them, and he was the one of the chasers, really, between Walker and Cable. And we'll continue to see if Walker and Cable respond within a lap or so, or if they've saved a little bit more fuel besides. Gap between Walker and Cable is now down to 1.1 seconds again, and if they pit around the same time, it is going to be a full-on battle of the pit crews. It looks like our GTP leaders making their way past our GT3 leaders at the moment. Baker going to come up on Walker there and clears him nicely. Sutton is the next, and he's going to have to wait for the exit. If Walker wants to pit now, he has to get over to the right-hand side, and he does. And it looks like Cable's going to follow him in.
Very, very tight on the exit. Ooh, Walker was very, very, very close to speeding on that entry. We'll have to see what iRacing decides at the very end. But in the meantime, here come the GT3s. They're going to come in for their first scheduled pit stop with 1 hour, 5 seconds left, or 5 minutes left to go. I have misplaced my decimal points. I can't do math. I can only count to 4. But in the meantime, Walker and Capel, we're going to have dueling pit stops for this particular point.
Yeah, who gets the best run through the lane then? The GT3s use tyre warmers, so their tyres will be in a bit better shape on the outlap than our prototype classes. As the time ticks up, Roger Shank, the next driver to join them, Nicholas Gunzenhauser, is also finding his way into the pits there. So that's our top 4 there, and it looks like solid stops from James Walker and from Lachlan Capel. Capel's pit stop, a 1/10 of a second faster than Walker's. They both have about the same amount of time through the pit lane. Walker, crucially, comes out with a bit of traffic in between himself and Capel. That will help him in the short term. That's
Those
amazing. Identical times.
I mean, pretty much getting everything you can off of this pit road and trying to get these tires up to temperature. Yes, they do have tire warmers, but let me tell you what, they are still very, very, very treacherous to get up to speed. Don't ask me how I know, but I digress. Meanwhile, in the pits, we still have Bradbury, we have Shake, we have Roussel, and looks like those stops are finishing up. Bradbury is about halfway through his pit stop, so we'll be seeing those vehicles come out back into play. Meanwhile, looks like we have our first retirement of the race. Unfortunately, it is car number 200. Alan Stixkas has disconnected from the server and has withdrawn. The checkered flag is showing on the iRacing menu. That indicates they're gone.
Yeah, shame for Alex Stixkas. He had a rough time in this race. Hopefully, he makes a return for future rounds. He is able to do a bit better next time. Well, Taylor Lodge has yet to come into the pits here in the Mercedes, and I think the tyres might be starting to cry out a little bit. The GT3 tyres, they can effectively last forever, but potentially, you know, Capel is obviously on way fresher tyres, can maximize the grip a little more. It is still traffic that he has to make his way past, but it is traffic on the same lap, so this is going to be helping out Walker.
It'll help out Walker for the moment, but it's all gonna go awry if Taylor Lodge is able to stretch this stint out to beyond the 1 hour mark. If he's able to do that, he will almost assuredly be coming into the pits just the one time, and then that's going to put a question mark on everybody else in the field, as it looks like Jake Fox has jumped into the pits from the 8th position in class. They're going to be doing 42 laps on that stint. We'll have to see if Lodge is able to stretch it to 44, or will he stop here on lap 43 of the stint?
Yeah, looks like Lodge is not going to come in this time round, so Lachlan Capel has a bit more work to do there. Lodge a little bit squirrely out of the final corner, and Capel, he had to worry about the LMP2 coming through before he made the move, but he works his way past Taylor Lodge and now has the opportunity to give chase to James Walker for the GT3 lead. And comparing their last lap times, Capel only about 0.2 of a second slower, maybe 0.3 if you stretch it. So he's got a lot more pace potential in that ERT Mustang.
A lot more pace and a lot more clean track at this particular point. Meanwhile, we have more stops finishing up. Fox is finishing it up. Ritter's just finishing up his stop as well. Running around in the 13th position, coming off of pit road. That just leaves the Lodge machine as having not yet completed a pit stop, and the Ryan Steele machine, although admittedly Ryan Steele was kind of hanging around at the pits for a little bit at the initial start, probably won't be a factor in this event, but there's still plenty of time left. Anything could happen at the front of this field.
Gavins, Barber and Cox trading spots for the LMP2 class. 7th place now for Gav Barber, who as we mentioned, did have some problems in the opening laps. That contact from behind from Frick Schmidt on lap 1. He's recovered well and is lapping quite consistently. Jake Fox then has Jonathan Ben for very close company. MFR present in the LMP2 and GT3 classes today. Kingsman is mainly active in GT3 and LMP2 as well. So this is a nice little matchup between these two. Fox has already been in the wall once in this race, coming out of turn 7. It looks like the car has been repaired nicely in the pit stop. It'll be interesting to see how many people have used their spare car to date.
That I would be also interested in finding out. My information is a little bit behind the curve, but perhaps Jake Kennedy can dredge that up for us in the API. But in the meantime, Lodge has completed their pit stop 39.1 seconds. Oh boy, I know he's gone a couple extra laps on this stint, but that's cutting it awfully close at the very end. With just 59 minutes left to go in the race, we are halfway up, halfway home, eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking.
Yeah, definitely. And also worth pointing out that there was a curiously quick pit stop for Sam Harper as well. Pitted 3 laps ago, but only 25 seconds in the box for Sam Harper. We've got the fast repairs that have been used on the ticker there. And it seems like, yes, Chris Tito's already used his. Alex Zika's already used his. But yeah, it looks like those numbers are a little bit lower than I was expecting.
Well, you might have to also consider that the incident count is the incident count has been relatively low, so a lot of these guys are probably playing it safe. Only 3 spare cars in total are currently out on the track at this particular point. Meanwhile, the battle for GT3 class lead is heating up. Walker has the position. Capable wants the spot, but in the meantime, there's an LMP2 in between. That's going to sully the works. Both Ford Mustangs right here, as the Dallara P217 sneaks its way by, opens up the track. Capel now has clear sight of James Walker. He's hunting for this position.
Yeah, a little bit of clear track he can take advantage of to get onto the back. Sam Sutton and Ewan Baker, meanwhile, now separated by 2.1 seconds. And Sutton has the lighter car at this point, but Baker, with the undercut, managed to get the position back. I get the feeling that Sutton shortened his pit stop maybe so that he could have a lighter car and drive a bit faster in this middle phase of the race before the GTPs have to take their final pit stop if they do need to take one. So, for the moment, I think Baker's responding to that situation pretty well, staying out by about 2 seconds and negotiating traffic as cleanly as he ever has.
Yep. Meanwhile, we still take a look at this GT3 battle. I mean, this is the most impressive fight on the track at the moment. There is now lap traffic in between, as that is the... I want to say that is the Fusion Machine of Robert DeLoach, P28 overall, but able to work their way through in the category P8 in class. And it looks like Capel is not going to quite get this cleared in turn 1. Takes a little bit of extra time up the hill. That is a 10th and a half lost for Capel right there, just in that overtake.
Of course, blue flags are advisory only in sports car racing. You don't have to pull over and let the lapping car go as you do in open wheel racing. So, well within his rights there. That was a bit of a close call for Ewan Baker, and another close call with Daniel Stevens there, who has brought himself up to 3rd place in LMP2. Remember, Stevens was among the first of our LMP2s to come into the pit lane. So he will have to pay that back in the final stint. But things working out well in the short term for the number 3. Just needs to stay out of trouble. And a little bit of trouble might be ahead with this GTP that's looking a little bit slower than others. It's Wayne Taylor, his teammate at MFR in the number 59.
I just want to point out, this is a very impressive rig that Dan Stevens has. You notice his steering wheel always lighting up blue. I could think back maybe a couple of years ago, this wasn't even really possible, but now you get all sorts of wheel manufacturers. I can't even tell who's makes this, but it looks cool. And it looks like it's screaming at him with these blue blinking lights indicating advisory. You can also see the iRacing indicator in the top left corner of his center monitor. And it looks like he's keeping an eye on his fuel gauge with the black box in the top right. All sorts of information that you can get with the iRacing API. This man is literally doing calculations as he drives around. It's pretty crazy.
And there's no way he can't know what gear he's in. Anywhere he's looking, he'll be able to see which gear he's in. He's got it up on the dash display, on the wheel, and another display over onto the right. And if you look on that top monitor up the top, just ever so subtly, you might be able to see the broadcast. Dan likes to listen into our broadcasts while he's racing. So hello to you, Dan. I hope that your good luck is continuing here. In third place in class at the moment. Going to be a good points haul if you can keep that together. But for the moment, on his own, with Hayden Kirk about 14 seconds behind and over 30 seconds to Garen Batten up ahead. Meanwhile, Cable has gotten into the GT3 lead.
Oh, we were distracted by all the shiny buttons and whatnot in the Stevens machine. We missed this overtake. Hopefully, Mr. Kennedy, we can cue this up because I imagine this was a pretty slick maneuver. Meanwhile, Cable all over the curb at turn number 5. That is probably one of the widest curbs ever in motorsports, and you can use all of it. You don't get an off track for going 4 wheels off right there. And in the meantime, let's take a look at the space-time rewind. Take a look at this back in turn 10B. Going down through 11 into turn number 12, gets the better run. Double the rear bumper, steps right out at the perfect time halfway down the front straightaway, and makes the dive and makes it stick.
And it all started for Capel at the exit of 10B. You would have noticed that he took a wider line on entry. Walker was doing a more direct line to the apexes, but slow in, fast out. That's what it does. Baker versus Sutton, meanwhile, the gap has come down. There's been some traffic for Baker, and it's down to about a second. Sutton has been running some excellent times over the course of the last few laps, shadowing Baker very nicely. And now they're coming up on our GT3 leaders again. Baker slots in between James Walker and Lachlan Cable. And oh, do you want to go up the inside here? Yeah, you can do it, but it's very risky. And Cable says, no thank you, mate. I don't want you to do that next time.
Yeah, that the S is pretty much a one wide segment. There are a couple of places you just saw where if you are in a much faster category, you can get around them and still get slotted in, but it's very, very risky behavior because you're putting one or both cars offline, and there's all sorts of marbles already built up on the exits of these corners. You saw right there in turn 7, just to the outside. You get in those marbles, it's lethal in these cars. If you take a look at the 533 of Bridget T. Coomlin. Excellent beard again. Obviously, having a fairly decent evening in P6, working his way around 10A, 10B, onto the front straightaway, starting another lap.
And this is going to be a move for position. It looks like Wayne Taylor with a bit of a snap on the way out of the final couple of corners, but Coomlin backing off quite early into turn 1 there. I get the feeling he might be driving to a number at the moment, but coming up onto the back of MFR number 59, who's taken advantage of the incidents for Gatito and Lockridge. I think that's the big difference maker here in GTP. You know, Taylor may not be the fastest out there, but he does have plenty of consistency on his side. Jason Lockridge, meanwhile, seeing that repairs are required for him, it looks like the 03 has had a problem, and Sam Sutton, as we speak, catching up to Ewan Baker ever further. Would have catched a whisper of slipstream off the Dog Bear LMP2 there. And it looks like the gap will stay consistent at about under a second. I gotta wonder how this lead battle is going to work out between Baker and Sutton, because like Sutton has the disadvantage on the next pit stop, but if he's able to pit earlier than Baker again, he'll probably be able to undercut him by getting those tires up to temperature sooner.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're trying to figure out what's happened to the Lottridge machine. I'm not sure what has caused the meatball. He has brought it up to the stewards for review.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's just perhaps hit the... it sounds like Mr. Kennedy has found something. He's found it.
Contact with Ewan Baker, apparently. Lottridge's car was crabbing coming into the pits. This is where it happened. So Baker is the car behind, focusing on Lottridge at the moment. Exit turn 5. Lottridge one's wide, and that was rather close. Was there contact? Clearly, the car looks like it's crabbing then after that. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. That's bizarre.
It is entirely possible that the prediction code for iRacing servers decided that there was a collision and decided that Lottridge got some damage in that exchange. It could have been nose to tail, but in that rear tire, and also going over that big curb, it is entirely possible, drop it off on the other side, that it is made something worse, or he's damaged it enough to where it finally decides on a beat ball.
Yeah, I mean, you saw when the wheel jerked over to the right? That was at the exact moment that he caught the gravel on the turn 5 exit. I mean, you mentioned how wide and usable that curve is earlier, Lynn, but it is a very bumpy section of the track. And I get the feeling that half of it might have been Lottridge just running over the bumps and damaging his floor. Meanwhile, Lachlan Capel and Justin Morton, something's just happened between them. Capel battling with James, with Justin Morton there now that he's taken the lead. Contact with a lap car, and Justin Morton gets sent off there. It looked only very light contact on the way into the final corner, but we've seen Netcode very much frown on Justin Morton before. I get the feeling that might be a similar incident.
Yeah, and if you remember from that previous incident, that was a very heavy impact. That definitely necessitated the use of the faster curve for just... Meanwhile, we have finally found this incident. The 533, it's an overtake, excuse me. There's so many collisions that some clean racing is a surprise, but to be sure, but a welcome one. 533 gets the position for P number 5. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're looking at 34, still battling for the lead right here. The gap is still down to about... Actually, they're side by side. How about this?
Oh, yeah. Actually, the side-by-side between, I think either that's Lottridge or Chris Yatito that Sam Sutton was alongside. So the gap for the lead is now back to about a second or so. Bit of traffic between them, but yeah, that was a nice move for Richard Kuhlman on Wayne Taylor, finally getting through into P5. Let's hope that he can hold on to that. But Sutton, for the moment, facing off with some GT3 traffic as Ewan Baker has a clear track ahead of him up until Friedrich Schmidt. Mark Newton, meanwhile, just filled the car up to make sure he can make it to the end there. Yeah, second stop, which we were thinking might be a slim possibility for the GT3s. It's a definite possibility for Newton, but has he given up some time that he otherwise could have gotten away with?
Possibly, but making sure, meanwhile, as the 03 has ticked over to the 20th incident point of the day for Lottridge, which is unfortunate because that's going to be a drive-through for him. So let's get some paperwork out of the way real quick. I know we're just bouncing all over the subjects. No further action on the previous protest by the 03. We have 2 retirements to mention. Brian Scrivener fell out at around the midway point. due to slow pace and perhaps some damage, and Justin Morton has checked out from the GT3 field. So we're missing cars from LMP2 and GT3 for the most part.
Yeah, curiously, none of our GTPs have retired yet. So good to know that attrition in that class is low, despite the big incidents we saw for Lockridge and Yatito. Meanwhile, our leader, working his way through GT3 traffic, has brought Sam Sutton right back into it again. That's the ebb and flow that I've been talking about so many times. Baker can get a gap, yes, but then he'll come up on a pack of cars at the wrong place, and Sutton is right back on him, all that hard work being undone. And now Sutton has got a little bit of slipstream, and this is a good opportunity for him to save fuel and try and extend that already shortened stint.
And to make matters worse, Baker catches the 08 right at the braking point. He's able to put that car in between, and they're able to both make it through, but that's a little bit of a gap that builds up ever so slightly. Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. Meanwhile, making their way through turns 1 and 2 for the next time by. This would be the 64th lap that they are starting. Man, this place is flying by, if I gotta say so myself, Reese.
They're already almost an hour and 20 in. It doesn't feel like an hour and 20 minutes has passed. It's been quite an action-packed race with plenty to talk about, like another bit of traffic for you and Baker. The GT3 McLaren of Marcel Ritter, followed by the LMP2s of Garen Batten and Adam Johnson, who are not fighting for position. Johnson about to be lapped by Batten in class. Batten, of course, running in second place to Thomas Hinz in the LMP2s, and Hinz shouldn't be too far up the road. I'm clicking. Actually, he is quite far ahead. He only just came across the start-finish line. And Hinzy is off to a great lead for the time being. But our GTP leaders are now getting some drama between them. Sutton is gaining on Baker. A little bit of traffic through the final corner for the number 34. And now the BMW is right on the back of the Acura.
Oh, but he's caught him at the S's with traffic in front. These guys are going to be bogged down ever so slightly by this GT3 right here. The Robbie Bradbury machine at the number 35. All the way through turn number 5, Baker is going to be able to finally get him on the exit of the corner. That's going to leave Sutton an opportunity to draft up again. And this is going to be the best opportunity Sutton's had in a very long time to get a tow on the long backstretch. Can he take this lead right here on lap 65?
It's a bit more of a rapid exit from Baker. Some more traction available in the Acura, it seems. But Sutton is still well within slipstream range. And he can regain that speed just a little bit. Another bit of traffic ahead of them. Taylor Lodge, who finally took his pit stop 12 laps ago. He was one of the GT3s to really hold out on the pit cycle. Doesn't look like they're going to come up to him until maybe the exit of turn 1. This could be a deciding incident, actually. Maybe? No, actually. Baker's able to get by, and so is Sutton, but that was close. If there was only about half a second's more difference between the cars, they both would have been stuck behind Lodge through the S's.
Or a quarter second the other way for Sutton. He would have been stuck behind the Mercedes GT3 for that much time, and he would have lost 2 or 3 seconds potentially through the S's, and that would have been monumental to try to make up in the last 41 minutes of this race. But they both able to negotiate it through. They're going to carry on to the backstretch. The next car that they're going to encounter is the James C. Walker machine for P2 in GT3. Meanwhile, Sam Harper is in the pits. I don't believe this is a... Oh, it is a meatball. Oh boy, there's going to be some spaghetti down there in that pit stop for the Fusion team. Meanwhile, Go ahead, Reese.
I was going to say that's especially a shame for Harper, because he'd taken that really short pit stop and gotten the track position to get himself into 3rd place in GT3 at the time. So that's that just really sucks for Sam. We're getting a replay soon, but to your point.
I was going to say, Capel has opened up quite a gap in in that category. They were nose to tail for the longest time, but now Capel has pulled out a 3.7-second lead, which could become undone if the prototypes have anything to say about it. But nope, they managed to make it through clean. Sam Harper has raised his issue on lap 59 to the stewards, and it is under review.
Yeah, 3 wide contact with 2 GTPs involved. Robert Northway trying to lap Richard Coolin here. Northway tries going up the middle, and it's 3 wide on the way into turn 1. Harper turns in, and unfortunately, it looks like there wasn't much else to be done about that. Super heavy contact, rear end of the car just absolutely mangled. From that, as we go back to live pictures, little drama more for the leaders. That was Yatito that was slow out of 10B, and they had to find their way past Thomas Hinz in the process as well. So this battle between Ewan Baker and Sam Sutton, they are fighting against the environment as much as they are against each other. Look at this, more traffic on the way into the S's. Baker clears the Dog Bear McLaren, so does Sutton. Looks like Hinz is going to find his way past too, but now they got Hayden Kirk in front of them and Roger Shank in the Mercedes GT3. This is going to be tight. Baker goes through the middle. Sutton will try and follow him here. A lot of speed in the BMW, but he'll be stuck behind Hayden Kirk for the next couple of corners.
Oh boy, you kind of... It's points like these that Sam Sutton wishes that the Georgia State Patrol would out here trying to get these lower classes under control. But in the meantime, he was able to get around them eventually, but he has lost a couple of tenths in the process of that exchange. Again, we keep harping on this point, ebb and flow, and at this point, it's rewarded Ewan Baker and punished Sam Sutton ever so slightly.
Well, Hayden Kirk jumps into the pit lane in response. Don't forget that we've got the Majors Endurance Championship coming up later on this month. September 20th to 21st, the 24-ish hours of Road Atlanta. Go on to majorseries.com to read the details and register. That's going to be a fun time. I think a lot of the drivers in this field are using this race as preparation for that.
Yep. It is technically the winter exhibition for the MEC. It doesn't count for points. And the reason it's 24-ish, well, it's actually a 6-hour race, but we're just playing with the time accelerator again. It's kind of fun. It's 4 times speed. It's going to be functionally a 24-hour race in sim, but it will be racing for 6 hours. And I know a lot of these drivers will probably want to be interested in that, because that is a very neat little coin that Mike Goulet has designed for that event. It's going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, for sure. Coins awarded to the drivers for great results in Major Series races. But our leaders focusing for the moment on their fight. Sam Sutton set the fastest lap of the race thus far on that previous turn around Road Atlanta, down to 109.4. And, well, Baker's fastest lap isn't too much slower than that, but there's going to be slowness here with the BMWs, and I think Baker got a bit unsettled behind the BMW there, was wide through turn 5, and this is the chance that Sutton has been looking for. Oh, he's going to have to stay behind again. Baker sees the door open to the inside for Mark Newton, and our GTP leaders find their way through on the number 6685. Still in the order that they were in before they reached those corners, but yeah, Baker wide through turn 5. That is one corner you absolutely need to hit the apex of every time.
At that moment was a very desperate lunge by the Ewan Baker machine. Technically not a block, because he's overtaken a slower class, but he had to keep that door shut to make sure that Sutton wouldn't be able to attack him. Meanwhile, Partridge is in on a scheduled pit stop. I think the LMP2s are coming in for this. Oh! Hang on to it!
Contact. Oh! What a save from Ewan Baker. Sam Sutton moves through to the lead, but that was super high drama. The LMP2 that they were coming up on, which was Craig Tilson, jumped into the pit lane, and Baker, I think, was caught out by that, got unsettled over the curb, and Sutton nearly spun him around here. Look at this aerial view. So Tilson dips into the lane, and Yeah, big reaction from Ewan Baker, an overreaction. The cars do make contact. Who's got a meatball?
The 34 has a meatball.
Baker! Oh my God! That looked like light contact, but these cars are very fragile. So Ewan Baker now has to pit to get his car refreshed. He will have to use his spare car. The race's face has completely changed.
If there's any consolation prize for Ewan Baker at this particular moment, we've talked about his aggression. He has handled this very well. It's going to come down to very closely the same scheduled
Sutton's
stop.
following
Sutton
him in.
jumps in as well. Maybe Sutton thinks he's got a little bit of damage, so these guys are just going to basically reset this fight. Meanwhile, up ahead, Gavin Barber has a penalty that he is attempting to serve in the meantime. But, oh boy, Reese, that was a very, very tense moment right there.
Oh, that certainly was. Almost turned into fireworks between our GTP leaders. Sutton did get damage as well to his front end, but it wasn't a mechanical black flag like Ewan Baker's. So no surprise to see that Baker will be using his spare car from that one. And Sam Sutton now is going to have to reset his strategy as well. They will both fuel up to the end of the race. I would expect their pit stop times to be very similar, and they are. They basically go away from their boxes at exactly the same time. Sutton's pit stop was a little bit longer. He did have to put more fuel in his car, but they stay very consistent, our two leaders. Now the fight can resume. Hopefully Baker doesn't catch the grass on the entry to the final turn this time.
One can only hope, because at this point, I don't know what else these guys can do that we haven't seen before. But at the moment, they're going to go again on fresh set of tires. Perhaps Sutton has elected not to use his faster pair. We know Baker for sure has had to use his faster pair. He's also raised the that moment to the stewards. So it's entirely possible that we could see a ruling on that as we see GT3 traffic up ahead. Oh, they both used their faster pair. Oh boy, they are putting all of their cards on the table. Both drivers going all in on this final stint.
Yeah, indeed. I think with the damage that Sutton got, it crumpled his front end a little bit. That would have been a major problem in a straight line, and it probably would have taken a bit to repair. They're immediately going to resume the battle here. They would have changed tyres in the stop as well, I would presume, so they're both still trying to get their tyres up to temperature at the moment. Sutton has been boxed in by the GT3 Mustang of James Walker, who still runs second in GT3, but now Baker is stuck behind. Sutton finds a way through, makes more contact with Baker, and sends James Walker off. I think race control's definitely going to be looking at that one, this time for Sam Sutton.
And what they're going to look for is they're going to see that Walker machine been sent off, and Walker's bringing this up to the stewards. That's interclass warfare, and these leaders have they've taken it a bit too far. The steel chairs have come out. I think they're about to start smacking each other. Just take a look at the replay.
Yeah, Sutton was very eager to get by Baker, wasn't he? He was trying to find every opportunity he could. Baker, got a bit crossed up, and that's the point where contact was made. Baker was trying to move past Walker, but Sutton was already on his way through, and Baker was the one who made the contact with Walker, but I think Walker could argue that Sutton trying to make it 3 wide there was the ultimate cause of that incident.
And the net result for the Walker entry right there, he's going to have to go ahead and come into the pits and probably take a look at this damage repair. Just 31 minutes left to go in the race. Obviously too early for a splash and go, but maybe this vehicle has sustained a little bit of right front damage. The camber may be out on that vehicle. He's going to have to come take a look at it. But in the meantime, as they get around the Lachlan Capel machine, the GT3 leader, so far so good. Oh boy, Reese, how much warmer can this battle even get?
I'm not sure, honestly. Sutton is now ahead, and Baker would have gotten maybe an infinitesimal amount of damage from that contact with Walker. speaking of Walker, he's just come into the pits, and it was a very short stop, maybe just to assess the damage and just get a little bit of extra fuel to make sure he can clear the end of the race. Has also used his fast repair as a result. So it's all right for Walker. Still running second, but I think his fight for the lead may very well be over. Here's a fight. Roger Shank and Sam Harper. Harper making his way back out on track after his massive crash at turn 1 with those two GTPs. And looking at working his way further up. This will be a fun one for sure. Roger Shank has been one of the harder chargers in the GT3 field. Looks to be up 7 positions from where he started, so it's been a good race for the 950, but Harper is looking to make that positions gained one number lower here as he sets up the inside for turn 6. How deep does he go? He's alongside and has a big dive. I get the feeling Roger Shank might have lifted off just a little bit to let him go. He's aware that Harper was well ahead of him beforehand, and he's just looking after his own race. That's all you can really do this late on when you're in Roger Shank's situation. Just stay out of trouble and try and follow the faster guys as best you can.
And you see, Harper almost got into a boo-boo with the GTP pass by Jason Lottridge. Obviously minded his own business, almost crossed into his lane. That would have been a no-no. But obviously, the McLaren's so well handled, rotating under braking that Harper was able to make quick work of that pass. Meanwhile, battle for position here, the 429 in the LMP2 category. It looks like Johnson had it, Schmidt took it.
Yeah, indeed he did. Frick Schmidt is now up to 5th place again in LMP2. And looking at his pace, it seems pretty equal with Hayden Kirk and Dan Stevens up ahead of him. They are more than a minute ahead, though, at the moment. So it's going to take a bit of a miracle for Schmidt to get it done there. Jake Fox trying up the inside of Stefan Roussel, try and get into 11th place in GT3, but it seems that Stefan is holding strong for the time being as the race enters its final half an hour. This has been quite the action-packed round of the Majors International region.
And you would think with just 38 cars starting this event that you wouldn't have a lot of activity going on, but there's a queue forming up outside of race control. I believe in the time that we have seen the Baker Sutton incident, about 3 or 4 more protests have been lodged for various different things. But meanwhile, we still take a look at the 429 battling. 29 is one of those got a ticket in the queue. It's going to take a little bit for them to sort all of these incidents out. I took a look at what Johnson was referring to. It kind of looked like a little bit of a box-in situation, so I don't know how race control is going to handle it, but in the meantime, he's going to have to proceed onward from the 6th position.
You try and follow Frick Schmidt through the traffic. They are the closest battle on track for the moment. It seems that Jonathan Ben up ahead of Sam Sutton is, you see that blink in the background there. Yeah, Jonathan Ben is having some serious tech issues at the moment, and I wouldn't have put much confidence in Sam Sutton as he made his way past. But Sutton remains in the lead for the moment, and it's out to 2 seconds now over Ewan Baker. I think the slight bit of damage that Baker picked up in the incident is hurting his speed ever so slightly. So it's worked out okay for Sam in the short term.
Yeah, and obviously this is potentially where the BMW's strength is starting to show. It is proven to be a bit more durable at the moment, although for Baker, a lot of his damage is on the front. That has potentially affected his front end grip. As you see, the gap is up to about 1.5 seconds. Well, actually up to 2. It was 1.5 at the start-finish line. I should be looking at live timing, not the instant timing. So obviously Baker has had a bit of a mishap at some point to allow this gap to increase by such a large amount.
Well, I think that Baker can still just keep consistent laps to the end and be happy with second. He did come into this round leading the championship, and Sam Sutton has only done a few select rounds of the championship. So Baker shouldn't be too hurt by a second place finish here at Road Atlanta. Lachlan Capel, meanwhile, 30 seconds ahead of James Walker, keeping in mind that James Walker had to pit for damage repair after Sutton and Baker went through on him. But Capel has only completed one pit stop so far, and moment 30 laps into this stint for him, and it's lap 72 total of the race. So another 10 laps or so, that's worth about, I'd say, 12, 13 minutes or so, maybe 15 at a stretch. Maybe Capel will have to pit again, but we're not entirely sure. There is a pit stop happening in GTP, though. Ben Doherty comes in from 4th in the GTP class. There's the gap between Thomas Hinds and Garen Batten, 23 seconds. Ever since Hinds found his way past Batten nearer to the start of the race, he has been nigh uncatchable. Hindsy is a big fan of the LMP2.
And his pace is really showing. His 5-lap average is at a 13.625 in comparison to Batten, who's only able to do 14.4s. Obviously, this is a very good car for Thomas Hinds, and also to add a little bit of a support as we get Sutton getting penalized. That's going to toss the complexion of the overall win out the window. But in the meantime, Sutton has had that appeal filed in, and the result is you get the penalty taken away in the race, and it gets investigated afterwards, and if it gets upheld, you get double. So that's potentially 60 seconds on the table if he decides that's worth the gamble. But he's also not registered for the full championship, so even if, well, hold on, Hinds had a little bit of a mishap in front of him happen.
Yeah, Ben Doherty, fresh out of the pits on super cold tyres. But I'm not sure it was entirely due to the cold tyres. Actually, it was. He ended up having a big snap out turn 5. That did get quite a bit of smoke up, but no contact was made with anything. And Doherty is able to continue on, albeit with tyres that may be a little bit out of sorts here. Just on the exit there over the white line. Yeah, the tyres are icy in the GTPs when they come out of the pits. No tyre warmers used for them.
Very icy, and lucky that he didn't take anybody else with him. Who is that off on the road beside him? But we will take a look at the replay on board from behind. Yeah, very, very scary moment right there. Have to take evasive action. May have gotten off track at that particular point, but meanwhile, Jake Fox, I happened to catch a glimpse of him previous lap. You saw a minute 40. And now Ewan Baker's got black flagged. What is going on around here?
Yeah, okay. So, this is interesting. Potentially, race control have decided that they both had a part to play in the incident.
Oh, holy horses. Here's some info from the Czar. Ewan Baker, we started saying how clean he was. He just hit 20 incident points. That's a drive-through penalty. That could potentially throw the overall points victory. As we take a look at the replay of the Fox incident most recently, that could potentially give Northway a points advantage at the very end if this drive-through allows Northway to close this gap to Baker.
That is harsh for Ewan Baker. Northway taking his final pit stop in the process. So this is not ideal. Baker will, I mean, he won't, I don't think he'll have to come into the pits for service again, but he will lose some time thanks to the incident points drive-through. I don't know if it's going to be enough for Northway to necessarily overcome him. There's like a minute and 30 seconds or so between those two. But yeah, that's not ideal for Baker. I think a big part of the incident limit being breached was that contact with James Walker. That would have been a 4X, and potentially Baker getting a couple couple of 1Xs over the course of the race as well. Oh, man, a lot of wrinkles being thrown into this competition right near the end. Lachlan Capel then will have the most solid lead of just about everybody in the GT3 class. As we're seeing that Chris Yatito has finally passed Thomas Hinz for position, and that means that Yatito has now driven past all of the non-GTP machinery on his recovery. He now rejoins his field in the running order.
Yep, just listening to race control. A couple of warnings have been handed out. No further penalties for some other incidents that have been put into the queue. But yeah, Yatito, it's taken a long time. He's finally caught up to the tail end of the GTP field, even though he is 3 laps down compared to the overall. As we take a look at a replay right here. Ooh, Northway getting a little squirrely on the exit. Oh, and didn't quite get that entrance quite right. Good thing there's a lot of grass over there. It's a very handy thing to touch in these dry conditions.
Yeah, certainly is. Minor mishap for Northway, and very big mishap for Jake Fox that we saw before as well. I think the worst thing about Fox's spin at 10B was that he ended up hitting the concrete abutment of the bridge, which would have damaged his car far more than hitting the tyre barriers would have. But in the end, Fox still continues on, albeit very heavily damaged, and Capel keeping his car clean up at the front of the field there. For the moment, the gap between Capel and Walker is looking to be about 40 seconds or so. So I don't think there's much here that Capel will need to do to grab victory from here, but it's worth keeping in mind that he has only taken 1 pit stop. James Walker had already taken his 2nd stop, and it seems that Mark Newton did the same thing as well. Dear, okay, bit of drama for Capel there as the LMP2 tried making their way past in turn 3. Yeah, now we wait to see if Capel's going to come in the pits again.
Yeah, massacring quite a few cones right there for the LMP2. The Tilson machine having that little mishap in front of Capel machine. But Reese, we have a tangent. We have a moment to take a tangent. Let's play a game. Which cars do you think have the fewest incident points? There's three correct answers to this. So I'll give you 3 guesses.
Oh dear. Is Capel one of them?
He has 10 incident points.
Okay. Thomas Hinz, our LMP2 leader?
Thomas Hinz has 8.
Okay.
3rd and final guess.
Oh dear. There's too many names, man. This is troubling. What about someone who's a bit outside the leading order in their classes? What about Taylor Lodge in the GT3 class?
Taylor Lodge, you're getting warm. You're getting. I'll say warmer. Taylor Lodge currently has 5 incident points. There are currently, the correct answer, there are 3 cars sitting on 1 incident points. Wayne Taylor in the 59, Robert DeLoach in the 235 LMP2, and Roger Shank in the 950 LMP2. Those 3 are the cleanest of the bunch so far. So obviously actually no, I have gotten these classes all mixed up. DeLoach and Shank are in the GT3s. I am very bad at these colors.
Well, good to hear that they've been able to keep it consistent and clean. And yeah, DeLoach has certainly been in the thick of a lot of the action. So for him to only have 1 incident point to his name is pretty significant.
And I would have to chalk it up to that McLaren that he is currently driving. Yes, he is on the Sportsman squad, but this McLaren is a very well all-rounded machine, at the very least on this current tire model. We'll have to see what happens when the big patch drops next Tuesday. We get the Aston Martin. Ray Partridge has received a penalty for 20 incident points.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, but DeLoach very, very, very close to the rear bumper of the 401 as we get Partridge coming in for his drive-through. So, yeah, week 13, it is the big patch that happens 4 times a year for iRacing. We get a lot of new stuff. We get some rebalances happening as Cable chalks up an instant point and runs off a little bit in the grass. Reese, what's your go-to most exciting thing that's coming in this patch?
I'm definitely hyped for the Aston Martin. I also spied in the screenshots that iRacing shared on social media of the Aston. They were driving on a Watkins Glen, and they've updated the curbs to reflect the colours that were used at the NASCAR weekend this year. So excited for that. Mexico City is coming, of course. No word on whether or not we're going to be getting Adelaide. I think that's going to be later in the year. The Ford Mustang joining the GT4 class as well. And Indy Lights are coming to iRacing as well. Indy Next, rather, the chassis that is used for sort of second tier open wheel championship in the Americas. I'm excited for all of those.
I gotta say, Reese, I am really, really excited about that IL-15 Indy NXT machine. There's gonna be so many in Freedom 100s being run around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That was a fun event in previous years. It's gonna be an insane little car to drive around there. 500 brake horsepower thereabouts. In an open wheeler, it's gonna be pretty fun. But in the meantime, back to current affairs. Robert Northway and Ben Doty have managed to close the gap a little bit, 3.5 seconds. Taking a look at their 5-lap average, Doty has been running 111.259s to Northway's 112.8s as somebody went sliding off right there. A little bit of gravel brought back up, so obviously still a lot of racing left to go in the final 14 minutes of this race.
Yeah, lot to go. Ben Doty has been making up good time on his teammate Robert Northway for this third place battle in GTP. We only have Sam Sutton and Ewan Baker on the lead lap in this race at the moment. And interested to see that Ewan Baker has not taken his drive-through for incident points yet. Oh, has he? Okay, all right. He came in. I guess it didn't. Okay, it didn't show up on my timing. That's inconvenient. But yeah, let's see what Doughty can do to try and get third place back. Robert Northway, of course, a little bit higher in the championship, so it'd be really good for him if he could get the points. On board in the GTP, the Cadillac that Ben has decided to take to the wheel of for this round, just showing how much wheel work is required in these things. The GTPs, they are purebred prototype race cars. They have sleek bodywork and plenty of underfloor channels to direct the air. What results is a machine that is very fast in a straight line, but also has tons of downforce. Around a track like Road Atlanta, you do need to compromise a little bit on that, though.
Yeah, Road Atlanta, one of the most unique natural road racing circuits in the world, especially for these what are essentially Formula One machines with a tint top. It's a shame that some car brands have decided that this is not worth their time, but the ones that we do have, we are very grateful for, because this is a very, very healthy category, I would say, both in stateside and worldwide with the World Endurance Championship. Very, very, very popular category. It's also kind of a, I'm going to say it's also kind of an interesting period of time with endurance racing. We got them World Endurance Racing over in Austin for their 6-hour race, so lots of sports car racing action to be had this weekend.
For sure. Thomas Hinds, meanwhile, strong in the lead of the LMP2 class. Looks like Chris Yatito took his final pit stop a couple of laps ago, so he has gone back to clearing all bar one of the non-GTP cars. Since his big crash, Tito has kept things nice and clean. Here comes Lachlan Capel into the pit lane for the final time in this race. And this is what we were thinking about here for Capel, whether or not he would have to pit. And it looks like 10 minutes from the end he will. James Walker already having taken his final pit stop nice and early. We'll see if Capel ends up losing out from that. 10.3 seconds on my timing in the lane from Capel. I think at this point he'll be staying ahead of Walker pretty convincingly. Yeah, Walker's just coming into 10A and 10B now, so Capel's barely lost anything out of that.
Yep, just a little splash and dash just to make sure that he can get it to the end. The side plot that I was keeping track of in the GT3 has apparently not come to fruition. Taylor Lodge has lost a lot more ground than I thought they would have, so they're not going to be in contention for the running. Meanwhile, take a look at the Northway machine. There's Taylor Lodge. Very basic default iRacing paint shop scheme, but nevertheless a very lovely looking Mercedes. Unfortunately, I was hoping that strategy would come into play so we could have a little bit of mid-race drama, but they're hanging on to it nice and neat as Dan Stevens comes up on the rear flank to overtake them, not for position, but to get around, just cycling around. It's kind of calmed down a little bit ever since the Sutton and Baker go heads up on this play. There's Stevens on board. It's a lot calmer now that the entire steering wheel is not screaming like a bunch of bluebirds wanting food under the nest.
And he's having a good time out there at the moment, solidly in third with barely any pressure from behind. Hayden Kirk is about 9 seconds back from him, so all he needs to do is focus on his lines, work past traffic efficiently, and he will be granted a class podium to help out his championship standing. Yeah, things are looking good for Dan Stevens at the moment. GT3 up ahead of him looks to be Jake Fox, who's still carrying that damage from his appointment with the 10B exit bridge abutment earlier. And a little bit of gravel thrown up by the GT3 as Ewan Baker makes his way through, running second in GTP. Yeah, that McLaren is not looking healthy for Jake Fox. Jason Lockridge, also a driver that has suffered plenty of problems in this race, including a mechanical black flag, same as his teammate Chris Tito. Still running. You know, I find that pretty significant, actually. The fact that we still have all of our GTPs running.
Yeah, surprisingly for what seems to be a relatively fragile car, they've all been able to hang on to it for the most part. I know Lottridge, after getting that black flag for a drive-through on incidents, he's only gotten one additional incident point, so he's sitting on 21. He's doing very well hanging on to it. Ewan Baker is sitting on 21. Ones that you might have to worry about, Robert Northway is sitting on 18. Chrissy Tito, not in contention, but also sitting on 17 points. Dan Stevens, 16 points in the LMP2, so still just a few minutes left in this race, but it's entirely possible. Kumlin is the first one to hit 30 incident points. He gets a second drive-through for his issues as we take a look at the replay. He went off in the grass, and yeah.
Live. He's just added another 1x to that right there, but he'll come in straight away. Looking at the gaps, okay, so Wayne Taylor is about 7 seconds behind. He'll make up some of that time as Kumlin tours through pit lane, and looks like it will be a position change. Taylor will take 5th place in GTP. Pretty significant. And well, it looks like Kumlin clearing his penalty without losing any further spots. So at the very least, he's settled into 6th place. Capel back out after his final pit stop and continuing to jet his way to potential victory. 17.5 seconds now the gap from him to James Walker. He has had a solid run, has Capel. Amazing to think, because it was only a few laps in the race that we saw him spun down at the bottom of the S's there.
Just a little bit of drama, but so far so good. Only 11 incident points for the capable machine right now. So he has plenty of resources left to go in this race with what little time he has remaining. Meanwhile, Hins, big face of determination right there. He's pure focus coming around 10A and 10B. And with his track racer sim seat, probably a pretty cozy position right now to being class leader right there.
Yeah, Hins has had a pretty smooth ride since taking the lead from Garen Batten. He has been on the periphery of some pretty major incidents, but never been directly involved in any himself. He's had a raft of experience in sim racing over the years, active in the sports car and touring car communities down under, and also racing in European leagues as well early on. In fact, that's where I first met Hinsey, was in a super touring league on R Factor 1 with European time zones. We're racing at like 2 to 4 in the morning. And he made his way over to iRacing, and he's had this pretty good rise to being a driver that, you know, we don't often see out on track, but when he is out there, he is one of the fastest and most consistent.
And R Factor 1, that is a long time ago. That is practically a different era of sim racing. And gotta say, even with this current crop of sims, obviously that's a lot of experience to be able to carry through, and it's showing Hins real well that he's able to basically keep this car clean with just 8 incident points at this particular point. His 5-lap average is doing pretty good. He's at 114. Oops, never mind. Mr. Partridge on the replay. Good sir. Oh, you can't park there, mate.
It's unfortunate there for Mr. Partridge. He's had a few issues in this race, and I think that might have just been one too many. Struggling to slow it up for 10A and 10B. Northway and Doherty, they are continuing to close up. Ben has been making some solid ground up on the number 1 car, his teammate. But 3 seconds in it between them with 3 minutes to go. It is possible for that gap to be made up if traffic falls the way of Doherty, but Robert Northway is reigning champion of the international region for very good reason.
Yep, their 5-lap averages are functionally identical, so obviously these guys have been catching the traffic at about the same clip. The previous lap for Doty was a 110.9 compared to a 111 flat for Northway. So again, it is entirely possible for Northway to accidentally throw this away. Knock on wood that he does not have that happen. I don't want to be the one to have the commentator's curse this round, please. No, please, no. Please get around this car. Yes, thank you. But I digress. But so far, so good. And again, inside of 3 minutes to go. Take a look at this number 30 machine. Where is this car? Oh yeah, Doty. Okay, 313. It's that 1 and the 3 kind of merged together as it flashed by on timing and scoring. Very, very sleek looking machine right there. As Yatito has received a black flag for 20 incident points.
Yes,
and that's because of a spinella.
That looks to be at turn 7. So they'll get back up to speed. But there's going to be one more tour through the pits for Chris Yatito. How did this happen? Oh my god! Okay. That is a massive rear lockup. And potentially downshifting in the slight wrong way. I'm not entirely sure. Whatever the case, rear end just gave up for Chris Yatito. Sam Sutton, meanwhile, our GTP leader, got a penalty hanging over his head that he has appealed. Race control will work that out after the race, but for the moment, he is on course for victory overall in this race. The white flag is not out just yet, and I get the feeling with the GDP lap times being the way they are, They are going to be going another lap here before the white flag comes out.
Yep. Sutton had a couple of seconds clear of the start-finish line, ticking over inside of 1 minute. As you say, he does have that appeal penalty hanging over him. It doesn't really affect the overall points. It's just going to affect who sits at the top at the end of the things. Going back to Yatito real quick, I think that was a case of he was catching lap traffic and probably panic braked to avoid making contact. Discretion is the better part of valor in that case. He decided to take himself out instead of hitting somebody else, and that worked out. Meanwhile, Sutton is going to be working his way around. We're going to tick down to time expiring within the moment, but I think Sutton is going to get at least one more lap.
Right, well, 10 seconds are on the race clock, and we'll see if Barney has the white flag in hand this time. He does indeed. So Sam Sutton will start his final tour of Road Atlanta for the moment with 27 seconds back to Ewan Baker. All he needs to do now is cruise to the end. Any traffic ahead of him that might make that difficult. There is Lachlan Capel, our GT3 leader, and at the pace Sutton runs, I'm sure that he'll be able to clear Capel by the end of the lap. Our LMP2 leader Thomas Hinz has just made his way out of the final corner. So it looks like Sutton and Capel will take the checkered flag first, as the black flag goes to Michael Hogg, another incident limit exceeder there. Capel and Sutton in Discord together, so they have been communicating over the course of the race, and it looks like they will cross the line together here at the end. So might not stand as a victory depending on what race control decide in the appeals process later on, but for the moment across the line will come Sam Sutton to win the Petit Le Mans in the Majors International region. Lachlan Capel wins in the GT3 class. A brilliant drive indeed from him, and I think the most consistent of them all, and probably one of the most impressive victories in this field. Thomas Hinz making his way to the line now in the Henry James Racing number 52 LMP2. He passed Garen Batten early on, and from that point didn't look back.
A nearly 30-second gap back to Batten for Thomas Hinz, a very impressive margin of victory in the category, and he's going to pass a couple of GTPs in the process. He comes around the final turn, takes the checkered flag. Thomas Hinz is going to get max points on this last multi-class round of the majors.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from all of our class victors here today, as the rest of the field completes their runnings here. It looks like Ben Doherty has been unable to catch up to Robert Northway. Northway will take third in GTP. A solid points total for him. Doherty settles for fourth, which is where he started. Only driver in the GTP field, and I think the only driver in the field full stop, to finish exactly where he started the race. Robert Deloach, the last one to cross the line for Fusion Silver, taking seventh in GT3. That's going to round things off for this round of the Majors Series International Region. In GTP, Sam Sutton won by nearly 28 seconds over Ewan Baker, but of course penalty was assigned to Sutton and he appealed it, so we'll have to wait and see if Baker ends up being given the victory after the race. That is yet to be decided, but this is where they finish unofficially for now. Northway and Doherty third and fourth for KSR as well. Wayne Taylor getting P5 from Richard Kumlin, who had to take an incident point drive through late on. Chris Yatito and Jason Lottridge both managed to get to the finish in the Fusion Silver BMWs, but they had a lot of problems along the way. Mechanical black flags and penalties and the like that they had to serve. It was a rough one, but they crucially got to the end. The GTP class, the only one today to have all cars get to the finish line.
Smallest class of the field, but they have all of their survivors. Meanwhile, in the LMP2s, Thomas Hinz takes the overall win in the category and is going to score max points. Finishing up second place is Garen Batten, just a half a minute back. That seems like an eternity, but it's such a small track. That's not a lot of real estate. Dan Stevens, Hayden Kirk finishing one lap down. Freak Smit finishing fifth on debut from the Netherlands to 2 laps down. Adam Johnson, Gavin Cox, Wayne Hutchison finishing off that lap particularly. Craig Tillson, Gavin Barber, 3 laps down for Middle Finger Racing together. And one more car in the category, well, 2 more. Ray Partridge finishing 8 laps down, kind of had that little spin at the very end, parks it later on to save some incidents. And Brian Scribner, we lost them a very, very long time ago, 47 laps down.
Yeah, shame for Brian there. In GT3, meanwhile, Lachlan Capel, he spun early in the race, but put on a fantastic recovery to win by 21 seconds over James Walker. Mark Newton rounding out your podium, and Nicholas Gunzenhauser putting on a fantastic drive, elevating his way up through that field. Looks like 6 spots gained for the Swiss driver to finish in 4th, and last car on the lead lap in class. Taylor Lodge, Robbie Bradbury, and Robert DeLoach will finish a lap down on their class leader, with Sam Harper could have been a wild card with that very quick first pit stop, but unfortunately involved in 3-wide contact with a couple of GTPs, had to spend quite a bit of time in the pits getting that car repaired. Roger Shank and Jonathan Ben round out your top 10, 2 and 3 laps down respectively. Jake Fox, Marcel Ritter, Ryan Steele and Stefan Roussel all finishing 3 laps down, all with their fair share of issues. Michael Hogg, he had to take a tour through the pits for incident limit and also got spun by an LMP2 early on. Peter Zsombati had a tough one from Hungary, 5 laps down, and unfortunately Justin Morton, thanks to Netcode and Alex Zekas, just involved in quite a few incidents, was unable to get to the finish. Big commiserations for the drivers at the back of the field there, but we can move to driver interviews to end off the night. The first driver I think we'll talk to is our LMP2 winner, Thomas Hinz, who joins us now. Great drive, Hinsey. It looked like, Road Atlanta is always a circuit that is difficult for multi-class. It's so short, so fast, so narrow, so it looked like taking care was the big option of the day.
Yeah, no, thanks, Trace. Yeah, it was just, traffic management, and just trying to be smart, really. Sort of thankfully, really, I did the 6 hours of Indy and the GTP yesterday, so I got really good practice at dealing with lots of traffic, but 3 times worse than what we had tonight. So yeah, and obviously being smart there worked well. So, and usually it does. Usually, controlled aggression. You go for it when you get the chance, but you don't do stupid stuff. You be smart, plan out passes just like you would if you're battling for position, which I think a lot of people forget when they're doing interclass stuff. So yeah, you just be smart about it, and generally it's going to work out all right in the long term.
We haven't been here for every single round of this championship, but we do have a bit more to run through. The next round of the international region is NASCAR at Watkins Glen. Can we expect you there?
Yeah, if I'm free that weekend, yeah, I'll definitely be keen to give it a run. NASCAR's obviously good fun on road courses, very tricky. Obviously, those next gens are, yeah, they're good fun, all the power and just a complete brick as usual, as NASCARs tend to be on road courses. So, yeah, all about the throttle and brake management, and just being on that, again, controlled aggression kind of thing, just aggressive, but not too far that you're spinning up and wheel spinning everywhere. And yeah, they're good fun on road courses for sure, and definitely you got to work for them. That's for sure.
Great points haul today, Hinsey. Thanks for joining us. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, just as usual, the HGR boys for all the support they always give, and always being great guys to race with, and all that stuff. Always appreciate them a lot. Big thanks obviously to obviously everyone obviously raced tonight. It was a generally it was a really pretty clean race, and it's always good. The guys that the little community that there is in majors is always really good. So great to see that continue. Big thanks obviously to majors for putting on these races. They always do a great job every round. And big thanks to you guys for amazing broadcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a really good show, and largely thanks to you and your performance, Hinsey. Thanks once again, and see you next time.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
That was Thomas Hins, our LMP2 victor. Finishing second in LMP2 was Garen Batten, and I understand Lynn Kinchelo's had a chance to catch up with him.
Garen, that was quite a wild turn of events. Take us through some of the highlights of what you experienced during today's 2 hours.
Yeah, plenty of back and forth with traffic. I'm sweating more than I have in a while, especially given it's winter here. Yeah, lots of passing and stuff. I had nothing for Thomas. He had a 10th or 2 a lap on me on pace, and so the only way I was going to keep him behind clearly today is if I had all the luck in the traffic, and I didn't. So, yeah, wave goodbye to him after the end of the first stint. But yeah, other than that, I was just trying to keep it clean, lose as little as possible and just run my pace. So yeah, I mean, being the middle class, you have to deal with everything. You've got to do all the passing of the GT3s. You've also got to deal with the GTPs coming through. So yeah, a few hairy moments and a few bullets dodged, but yeah, happy enough with P2. So yeah, good day.
Overall, a very good day. Anything in particular that stands out that you think is going to translate to the we call it the 24 hours ish, but the 6 hours of Road America MEC exhibition later on this month?
Yeah, I think everyone that's done this weekend in majors will have plenty of setup experience. They'll know what they need to do, pending any season update changes that happen next week. But yeah, I feel like I'm well bedded in. I'll be able to pretty quickly get up to speed for anything for that race. Not that I'll drive in it likely, but yeah, hopefully everyone that's done this, they'll feel well prepared for it. And obviously it's a great hit out for people in iRacing generally to come and have a practice race of 6 hours, with proper admins and so forth, ahead of the iRacing special event that's going to be a couple of weeks afterwards. So yeah, hopefully it attracts a reasonable crowd and a couple of splits, and yeah, we'll have a good time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and especially with the big Petit Le Mans coming later on after that. So, as you say, a lot of opportunities to practice. Before we let you go, anybody you'd like to shout out to the audience tonight, Garen?
I mean, yeah, the Fusion guys, we've had a reasonable week of testing stuff. These races where there's 3 different classes to choose from and then multiple cars to choose from within some of the classes, there's a huge amount of setup work and figuring out what the best cars are, best sets are, that sort of stuff. So, thanks to all the Fusion guys that have worked through all of that with us this week, and yeah, hopefully I can get a little bit of sleep now before I show up for Euro again in a few hours.
Yes, the work of the competition committee never ends, so we better let you go. Thanks for stopping by, Garen.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That was Garen Batten.
That was indeed. And last driver that we have for interviews is our GT3 winner, Lachlan Capel. Well, Lockie, it didn't quite start out as optimally as possible. A bit of a snap in the S's, but seems like you gathered your momentum after that and didn't look back.
No, it never seems like my majors races ever start well or something ever happens. Even though I've had always good pace, this is the actual one that I've finally been able to win. I think I've had 3 goes at it and have been second every single time due to some problem. But I've been battling myself post-surgery for the past couple of days, so through quite a few painkillers and that, I decided to give it a go tonight. Couldn't do sculpts because I think that might have just been a little bit too much because it's taken a bit out of me already. So, yeah, wisdom teeth removal, not fun, but I'm managing it okay. In terms of the race, yeah, I didn't have many laps in the car, if I'm being honest. Leaning now to the Mustang meta that is the current GT3s, I haven't had enough time to fully understand this car, and due to how they're setting them up, this car likes to pogo on me on really big curbs, so I'm not fully used to that yet, and I think that's where my weakness is really showing in this car. But I think one of my big strengths, and it showed quite clearly, was traffic management. It's a very rare skill. It seems to be in multi-class racing, and that's how I was able to pull myself up, get back to the position I was in, and then put out another 20-second gap to James at the end there. So it's just sort of understanding where you can let people go, where people might make the move. It didn't help that it was a single split race, so there was definitely a little bit lower end people who maybe didn't have as much experience in multi-class racing as some of the top of the guys did, like Sam, Ewan, and Hinsey and that sort of stuff. But still, it's learning the field. So usually that first half an hour with the big traffic's learning what people want to do and what people are the ones to avoid, and then you kind of work your way from there.
Well, almost full points haul from this particular round for you. Only a couple of rounds to go in the Majors Championship. We have the regional wild card of NASCAR at Watkins Glen, then the Bathurst 500, and then the Japanese Grand Prix to end off the season. Any of those in particular jumping out to you as ones you'll be successful at? Minus Bathurst, of course, because we all know all the Aussies are going to be on all cylinders for that one.
Yeah, Bathurst, I do really like how GSRC has gone. Sorry, GSRC. How Majors has gone this time round compared to the previous seasons, and that they've made all these races free, so you don't have to pay for them, which is really good to get good participation in. And I've really enjoyed having a really good go at some of these Majors races because they really suit how I really wish to drive, especially when that V8 takes a bit of a toll on how I'm forced to drive the car. This gets me a little bit more loose and allows me to drive how I want to drive. So definitely do want to take a crack at a couple of those. NASCAR's I'm a big fan of, but might overlap with one of the special event weekends. We'll see there. V8s do want to have a go, but at the same time probably would be good practice for Scops, not Pro Series, because unfortunately I can't make Pro Series 1,000 this year due to real world commitments, but then maybe finally trying to drive an F1 car or something similar in the GP at Suzuka would finally be good. And I think I tried to do it a year or two ago, but never ended up doing it. So again, I really love the fact that Majors take these ideas and move it around, do all these different car track combinations that are outside the usual, either A, multi-class, or B, what we're used to in Australia, V8s and etc. So definitely some good rounds on the edge of the schedule that I might see if I can try and do.
Well, that's going to round things off here, Lockie. Congratulations on your victory. Finally grabbing one here in the Majors International region. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Obviously a big shout out to Evolution Racing team. I wouldn't be where I am without them. We've all put in a lot of work throughout the V8 scene, so obviously Brenton doing all the hard yards at the back, getting everyone sorted for events and that, and opening us up to doing all these different events, getting paint sorted and that. It's absolutely brilliant. So huge shout out to all those guys, and Logitech G is our main sponsor, and obviously a big shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast. And even though I haven't probably said it enough, shout out to Majors for doing these wacky and weird combos that no one else seems to like to do in these time frames. So yeah, that's about it, and I appreciate finally trying to get the race win that I've been waiting about a year and a half for. So it's good.
Yeah, well earned, Lachlan. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's going to round things off here, Len. Well, as we mentioned, the next round of the Major Series has all the regions running slightly different events, all NASCAR, but here in the international region, we're going bowling at the Glen.
That's going to be a very fast-paced event. The main thing I'm kind of worried about right now, yes, this is Watkins Glen upcoming, but I see the mountain looming over the horizon for the second time, but at least for the international region. That's going to be a big challenge, and boy, oh boy, last 3 races of the year, it's going to get really intense for these last points battles.
Yeah, it's going to be super intense. We're starting to reach the final stanza of this championship. It has been a hotly contested one, and one that is going to have a deserving winner at the end of it. We hope to bring all of that action to you and more here on SimSpeed TV. Mark that date in your calendar, October the 5th. It's going to be a fun one for sure, and we hope to see you there. I'm Reese Gardner, Lynn Kinchelo with me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy alongside us in the producer's chair, bringing you the live pictures here on SimSpeed TV, whether you're from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Kick. We thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.